Get ready for an exciting story that's going to blow your mind. In today's video, we're gonna see an epic what-if Naruto story where he finds himself in an unexpected harem featuring Orihime, Tatsuki, Rukia, the female Kyuubi, and so much more. Trust me, this is one story you won't want to miss. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's see if we can reach 200 likes for the next part of this incredible journey. Now, grab your headset, sit back, and enjoy the ride. Please do support the author Uncle Joe, the link is in the description. Naruto grimaced as he ran through the forest following the sounds of a woman's screams. He didn't rightly remember how long ago he had staked out this forest, as his domain was at 500 years ago. 550? It didn't matter. In his 21st year, he had gained the ability to use all of Kyuubi's chakra. The demonic chakra to this day continued to increase his chakra reserves, and the side effects of using it were considerably lessened. Kyuubi's soul was in his stomach with unexpected side effects. Immortality and eternal youth. He didn't know if he was invincible, but he clearly remembered being decapitated at least once before. He dismissed his thoughts as he caught sight of a clearing, and what was in that clearing filled him with rage. Yuki whimpered in fear as the 5 men surrounded her in the guardian forest. She knew why they had taken her. She was considered the most beautiful maiden in the entire village. Long silky black hair, dark brown eyes, angelic face, skin like ivory, and very generous curves. 18, and a virgin turning down men left, right, and center, and now her virtue was going to be taken by force by some disgusting old evil bastards. What frightened her most was the fact they were in the guardian forest. Her family believed the old tale that an ancient being lived in the forest, and would kill all who violated its sanctuary, though it did take pity on people. She remembered when she was a kid a group of boys had gotten lost in the forest. They were found 3 days later perfectly healthy and claiming they had been fed and led out of the forest by an angel, whereas a few who made it out of the forest after deliberately trespassing claimed they saw a demon or some kind of fierce beast or animal that would growl from the shadows in warning and then attack any who persisted. So that's why she froze when she heard a rustle of leaves and a growl coming from behind her. Hey Carl, what sound did I just hear?" asked one of the doomed men. Let's face, they're dead already, they just don't know it yet. "I dunno, probably some animal, forget it. I want to make this pretty little thing scream." Yuki's eyes widened and tears began to stream down her face. She froze when she heard a whisper. "Close your eyes and keep them closed." She didn't know why, but she obeyed instantly. She felt something large move past her as she listened to what was going on around her. "Hey, who's this guy?" "Yeah, beat it, Blondie. I am your death," spoke a voice that was so quiet and calm and deadly yet held a deep and mature quality that Yuki found slightly arousing even in her current situation. "What, you can't say shit like that, I'll kill YHHHHHH." Yuki almost opened her eyes. As the screaming began, she heard her attackers try to run, but they stopped suddenly, followed by screams and wet flesh sounds as they fell to the ground, obviously dead. She was shivering in fear and screamed when arms wrapped around her, hoisting her into a bridal carry. The events of the night were too much as she passed out unknowingly in her savior's arms. Naruto grinned slightly as he carried the unconscious woman in his arms. She's 18, I guess, and she smells nice pure. My guess would be she's a virgin. What you think, Fuzz? But, well, I think you could have some fun with her before we leave. I finally figured out how to do that world teleportation thing, so we can do it tomorrow or whenever." Sounds good. Oh, we're home, chat later, Fox." Yuki woke up remembering her horrible nightmare. Then she looked around. "Where the hell?" she said out loud as she realized she was in an apparently nicely furnished cave. "Oh, you're in my home!" Yuki screamed and whipped around a froth. She stared and stared at the man who had spoken, not realizing the slight amount of drool making its way down her chin or the growing dampness between her legs. She liked what she saw. The man behind her had to be a solid 6'6", maybe even taller, and appeared to be about 20 or 21 in age. He had a chiseled face that was extremely handsome. However, 6 long, perfectly positioned scars on his cheeks gave his face a feral quality. He had long blonde hair with blood-red tips that reached down to the small of his back and electric blue eyes. He wore a sleeveless vest which was open in the front, displaying an impressive set of muscles. Yuki snapped out of it, not because he said something but because her body made her do something, whimper with desire. She was utterly mortified when the man chuckled, seemingly pleased with her reaction. "You okay now, Haim? No lasting damage, I hope?" She shook her head, not trusting her voice. "In case you're wondering what happened, I saved you from those men." Her eyes widened as she stared at his face, not catching a hint of deception. "Why did I save you? It's quite simple, really. This is my forest." It took her a few seconds to register what he had said, and then her eyes almost bulged out of their sockets. She had been saved by the famous and fabled guardian. She passed out. She awoke again a few minutes later and stared at the man who was currently facing away from her. Okay, what to do? Just then her inner pervert came into being. Let's reward him, eh? What? I can't do that, I'm a virgin. Yeah, so what better way to lose it than to a totally hunk of a man who most likely has lots and lots of experience in having naughty stuff. I'm not as sure. Get off your ass and him, girl. Yuki nodded slowly to herself. She stood and walked over to him. She wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned against his broad back. She let her instincts and desires take control as she licked his ear and whispered, I think you need a reward, Mr. Hero. Naruto grinned to himself as the girl propositioned him eagerly. He turned slightly and grinned at her. The next thing Yuki knew, she was completely undressed and being lowered to the floor by an equally undressed savior. Her eyes closed and she whimpered loudly as he suckled on her neck, leaving a red shiny love bite behind. He chuckled to himself at her little whimpers and sighs as he kissed his way down to her watermelons. She gasped and clutched at his head as he sucked her nipple into his mouth. Her whimpers began to echo around the cave as she fisted her hands in his hair. Moments later, he put a hand on her other watermelon and began to squeeze it and play with the nipple. This earned further whimpers. He next slipped his spare hand down between her legs and in between her folds, noticing how wet she was before he found her clit and began to play with it. Yuki whimpered loudly as Naruto made her feel incredible. This was nothing compared to her own hands. Not even that one time she had lesbian naughty stuff with her best friend measured up to this. She groaned slightly as his mouth left her watermelons. She then realized for a split second she didn't know his name. Well, wait, please? What's wrong? We don't even know each other's names. Ha ha ha, oh man, he kinda dumb. Ha, well, I'm Naruto. Yuki. Naruto smirked slightly as he got back to work and eventually reached her pussy. He smiled as he parted her lips slightly before he dived in with his tongue. Yuki cried out at the sudden intrusion, but soon began to call out Naruto's name and buck into his face as he licked her inside walls. She began to twitch as an incredible amount of pressure had built up in her stomach. Ooh god. Naruto opened his mouth wide and swallowed as much as he could. He smiled as he looked up at Yuki's stunned and flushed face. You taste good. If she hadn't already been red-faced, she would have become at that statement. She muttered incoherent gibberish for a few seconds as she came down from her high. Naruto chuckled as Yuki slowly brought her eyes back into focus and stared at him in wonder. What's wrong? That was incredible. Yeah, however, there is a problem. What? If I continue, you will most likely never have it as good as I can do. It sounds arrogant and makes me look like an asshole, I know, but it's happened before. Yuki frowned and came to a decision. Who cares? Naruto smirked and moved up her body, giving her a passionate kiss as he lined up with her. He looked in her eyes, and she gave him a nod. He plunged in. Yuki screamed and bit down on Naruto's shoulder as the pain coursed through her. She had expected pain, but not this much. Then, as it slowly began to subside, she realized it was due to the fact that he was massive. He watched her and wiped away a couple of tears. She smiled at him slightly as the pain continued to fade. He kissed her and she kissed him back eagerly. He pulled back and got a nod. He began to slowly shaft in and out of her. She was soon whimpering and clutching at him, clawing him occasionally, even though it healed right after. He increased his rhythm slowly in a steadily increasing tempo. Naruto chuckled to himself as she screamed out his name and tightened around his large member. However, wasn't done. He continued on, and Yuki had at least 3 more orgasms before he finally came with her. Yuki screamed out as yet another earth-shattering orgasm ripped through her. She fell back as Naruto leaned over her, panting slightly, a light sheen of sweat on his skin. Yuki had utterly collapsed as Naruto pulled out her very slowly and laid down next to her. Wow, Naruto laughed. If you think we're done, you got another thing coming, Yuki-hime. Yuki looked over at him, both fear and lust shining in her eyes. Naruto chuckled to himself as he began to rise again, and Yuki noticed with an almost hungry look in her eyes. Naruto smirked as he moved. Yuki winced as she walked with a pronounced limp with the pounding she had received last night. She actually couldn't walk, but Naruto had healed her, but he couldn't heal all of it. But she had to admit it was a pleasant soreness. She topped the hill and looked down at her home village. She looked over her shoulder at Naruto, who had carried her most of the way. Let me give you a parting gift, Naruto-sama. Naruto's eyes widened at the added suffix as he was pushed against a tree, and hands quickly undid his belt and pushed his pants down. Naruto gasped as he was engulfed in a warm, damp place. He grinned slightly as Yuki began to give him a blowjob. He hadn't let her do this last night, the entire night being simply him pleasuring her. Yuki whimpered as she fingered herself while sucking on Naruto's dick. She soon realized she would never get the whole thing in her mouth and began to rub the parts that she couldn't get in her mouth. Naruto whimpered loudly as wet slurping sounds reached his ears. He was going to blow. Orihime, I'm gonna. Oh God. Yuki's eyes widened as his dick began to twitch in her mouth and hands. He exploded in her mouth, and she swallowed it all eagerly. She stood and wiped off her chin and grinned at him. You taste good as well. Naruto grinned back at her. Thanks for this, Orihime. Yuki smiled slightly. Do you think I could visit sometimes? Naruto sighed sadly, making Yuki worry. No, because I'm leaving this world tonight. Yuki's eyes began to fill with tears until Naruto kissed her. I don't want you to die, Naruto. I'm not dying merely for leaving this world. I've lived in this world since the day I was born, which was about 2,000 years ago, Yuki. I'm tired of this world. I'm going to a new one to have new adventures. Yuki smiled sadly at him, then kissed him once again. She smiled at him and began to walk down to her village, not turning back, knowing somehow that would make it harder on both of them. Hey kid, before you leave we should change your age, make you younger, eh? How much younger? Let's say 15. Okay. Naruto grimaced as a slight pain went through his body, and he'd lost a couple of inches in height. Naruto sighed as he drew out a giant seal and charged it with chakra. He stepped into the center and activated it. There was a flash of white, and he was gone. Naruto groaned. It felt like he was floating. He opened his eyes and uttered a single sentence. Ah! He was at least 100 feet of the ground in midair. He screamed as he neared the ground and impacted with a loud crunch. A black cat walked leisurely through a forest, seemingly in no hurry to reach her destination, wherever that might be. Suddenly a flash of white light in the sky startled her. She looked at where it had been through a gap in the trees, and was surprised what looked like a person falling from it. The person began to scream, and even from where she was almost a kilometer away, she could hear the crunch of impact, and it made her wince. The black cat began to run, I don't know what the hell you call it with a cat, a gallop, in the direction of the landing. She soon arrived at the edge of a clearing where the person had landed, and was slightly shocked to see a tall blonde teenager getting out of a crater, seemingly unfazed by a landing that would kill normal people. The strange teen looked around for a moment before beginning to talk to himself and apparently getting a response. Better explore a Kyuubi? The boy nodded to himself and made a weird T shape with his fingers. He then frowned, dropped his hands, and tried again. His eyes glazed over before opening wide in shock. What the hell do you mean I've got an O chakra? What the hell is Ryatsu? Oh, the blonde seemed to phase out again as the cat watched on in amazement. Meanwhile, inside Naruto's mind. So you're telling me when we got here all my chakra was converted to this Ryatsu stuff, which has to do with my spirit. So it's basically spirit energy, and that you still have chakra, but any of it that leaks over will convert to Ryatsu, but I still heal thanks to your chakra. Yep. Can I still use the tails? I don't know, but do you really need to? Probably not, but why did it convert? Most likely it's because chakra is your world equivalent of personal energy, or whatever you want to call it. This world's is this spirit stuff, so to fit in it must have converted over. Don't know how, but it did, so don't worry about it. Naruto nodded to himself. As he tuned back into the world, he sensed something behind him. He whipped round and jumped a good 20 feet back in a single jump as he was faced by some monster with a white bone-like face. The cat watched as the blonde seemed to have a conversation within his own mind. The feline hissed when a large white-faced creature appeared behind the blonde boy. The kid snapped out of it and turned around facing the creature. The cat watched in some surprise as the boy leapt over 20 feet back with pure muscle power. Naruto watched the creature warily as it stared at him. It spoke. You have much energy. I'm going to enjoy eating your soul. His eyes widened at the thought of it eating his soul, and this gave it the chance to strike. It launched itself at him, and he just managed to dive out of the way by pure reflex. He kicked out, sending the creature flying. It landed heavily and slowly got back up, growling. To kill it you have to smash its mask. He didn't know who had said that, as it had definitely not been Kyuubi, so he decided to follow its advice. The monster launched itself at him, and he got ready to strike. The cat had decided to at least give the kid a chance on his own to fight off the creature. The cat watched as the kid readied himself, and the monster launched itself at him. The cat watched as the kid launched a punch at the monster's mask, and almost fell over in shock when the kid's fist blasted almost straight through the mask. The guy was just standing there with half his arm inside the monster's face. Naruto smirked to himself as he drove his fist straight through the creature's mask. He didn't need Tsunade Bakon's version of strength, he had his own. The creature screamed and seemed to fade away into dust. The voice spoke again. Well, that was unexpected. He whipped round and spotted the voice's owner. A cat. A cat? Yes. Well, wouldn't be the first time. What's your name? The cat face faltered at the fact this wasn't the first time he'd encountered a talking animal. There is no way this guy's met any of my family. Is there? It's Yoruchi Shihuin. Wow, not even Gamakichi has a second name. Who? Oh, well, you see, Are you a summon creature? No, I've never heard of summons before. Oh, then what are you? Can all cats in this world talk? And what was that thing? Yoruchi's sweat dropped at his obvious excitement and enthusiasm. No, I'm special, and that was a hollow. The boy suddenly froze and gave her a sly look. I bet you're special. What do you really look like? Yoruchi froze and stared at the boy in shock. He had seen through her spirit form. She smirked inwardly. She would figure out exactly who this boy was later. For now, she would surprise him. She changed. Naruto watched as the cat changed, and suddenly a woman was standing before him. She was tall, slightly taller than him at his current age, with chocolate-colored skin, yellow-colored eyes, and dark purple hair. He then noticed she was undressed, and his eye widened, taking in her near-flawless skin, large watermelons with dark nipples, a neatly trimmed patch of hair above her entrance. He smiled. Yoruchi smirked as she watched the teenager in front of her examine her appearance. She grinned in anticipation of a sudden large and powerful nosebleed when she saw his eyes widen. However, she was also taking him into appraisal. He was tall, taller than her, at least 5'9", maybe 5'10". When he stopped growing, he would tower over her. He had long blonde hair with red tips that reached his shoulders and thin lines on his cheeks that looked almost like whiskers. His eyes were in deep blue, a vibrant and incredible color. They seemed to look into her soul. All in all, he was damn. If he was older, I'd be all over him. Her eyes widened when he smiled. There was a sudden rush of movement. Yoruchi gasped as she was slammed into a tree pinned there by the kid's body. He was looking right in her eyes. She was mesmerized temporarily. She would later berate herself, ashamed that someone as powerful and skilled as her got lost in a handsome teen's eyes, so lost in fact that she didn't notice him lifting her legs and placing them around his waist. She would also later learn that he was no teen. Thoroughly aware of the beautiful undressed woman he had pinned to a tree, Naruto smiled. It was time to play. What to play? He asked with a slight growl to his voice as he pressed himself up against her. She gasped and glared at him, obviously thinking that two could play at this game. His eyes widened when she disappeared. Yoruchi smiled. She wasn't the goddess of flash for nothing. She appeared behind him while mulling over what to do. In her mind, he's fast and strong. Looks 15, but by the look in his eyes, he's a hell of a lot older. He's got one hot body and is definitely playful, most likely experienced in both battle and other matters. He's not a Shinigami, that's for sure. He's not evil, I can sense that much. Though there is a darkness in his soul. Aw hell, why not? I haven't had naughty stuff in a long time. She appeared behind him, trailed a hand across his cheek while nibbling slightly on his ear. When she realized she didn't know his name. What's your name, handsome? Naruto Uzumaki. She grinned as he turned and kissed her full on the lips. She deepened the kiss, already noting he was good at it. She gasped in surprise when her tongue ran over the larger than usual canines he had. She whimpered when his hands lightly traveled down her bare back and began to gently massage her ass. She pulled back and gestured at him. Off. He grinned and quickly stripped. Yoruchi couldn't help herself as she stared, going down from his wide, well-muscled chest to his rock-hard abs, and then below the waist. Her eyes widened, and she licked her lips subconsciously as she observed the heavy artillery before her. Naruto smirked slightly as Yoruchi stared at his package. He moved forward again, cupping one of her watermelons as he kissed her. The Catwoman whimpered as he began to squeeze and mold her watermelon in his hand. He broke the kiss and began to lick and nibble his way along her neck until he chose a spot and began to suck, leaving a nice red hickey behind. Yoruchi whimpered. She was in ecstasy. The kid was good. She gasped when he sucked a nipple into his mouth, rolling it around with his tongue and then applying suction in alternating patterns while his other hand left the watermelon it had been playing with to slide down her stomach and in between her legs. She cried out and bucked against his hand as he slipped a finger inside of her, quickly followed by another, while two fingers moved in and out of her. His thumb toyed with her clit. This, combined with his mouth alternating between each of her watermelons, drove her to the edge and then over it. He chuckled to himself as he detached his mouth from her watermelon and felt her inner walls tightening considerably around his fingers. She screamed. He loved it when they did that. Truth be told, no matter how much Kyuubi complained about it, no matter how much all his male friends told him he was insane, he much preferred to make a woman feel pleasure, both physical and emotional, than to get any sort of tactile sensation out of them. To be put bluntly, he'd rather eat them out than have them suck him off, rather make them blush with embarrassment when he said some compliment or some piece of innuendo than have them compliment him on his manners or body. However, this in no way means he didn't like that stuff, he just preferred it the other way round. While the blonde was following this train of thought, Yoruchi was slowly bringing herself down from her high. Well, he's good with his hands. Let's see what else he can do. She, however, did not get to follow this thought with action just yet. He lifted his hand, showing two fingers soaked in a clear liquid. He stuck one finger in his mouth, staring in her eyes the entire time, watching her face flush as he sucked and licked his finger clean. He was just about to put the other finger in his mouth when she grabbed his hand and encased the soaked digit in her own mouth. He was surprised, to say the least. Very few women enjoyed their own taste in his experience. He'd met quite a few, but only 2 in his first 50 years of life, Anko and Ino. But then again, they had enjoyed each other's as well. Good times. Naruto's eyes widened as he was pulled to earth by a certain not yet completely satisfied ex-Shinigami captain. At first, he was on top of her, but she rolled him over and ended up straddling him. No words were spoken as a chocolate-colored hand wrapped around his shaft and guided him to her entrance. He slipped inside her deliciously tight warmth. Yoruichi cried out to the heavens as they both began to move. She'd had naughty stuff before, but never like this. She'd never been so filled before. She began to move up and down as they both whimpered. One of Naruto's hands latched onto her waist, another onto a watermelon. They began to move together. She would fall to meet him, and then she would rise. He would then rise to meet her and fall again. This was repeated over and over. Yoruichi didn't really know how long they had been at it, as she had lost track of time. She felt it. An enormous amount of pressure was building up in her stomach. She screamed as it was released. She cried out again, as Naruto came, adding even more to the sensation she was feeling. He groaned underneath her as she collapsed on top of him. Yoruichi laid her head on his broad, sweaty chest as the both gave great heaving breaths, trying to calm their rapidly beating hearts. She felt his chest rumble as he chuckled. "Why not many can keep up with me, Nikoheim?" She smiled at the nickname. Naruto ran his fingers through his lover's hair and heard a peculiar sound. He smiled when he realized Yoruichi was purring. "I'd greatly love to continue this until you won't be able to walk right for a week, but I believe we both need a place to stay, so we can sit somewhere warmer, private, and comfortable, so I can tell my story, and you yours." She nodded at this logic. She moved off Naruto, but not before sliding her watermelons across his chest and stomach, an obvious reminder of what he was missing out on for now, he thought, with a dry chuckle. He stood and got dressed. He spotted Yoruichi changing into her cat form, who then gave him a look that obviously said, "Follow me." He smiled. Naruto's face creased slightly in a frown when he heard a giggle in his mind. Long ago, to get the fox to leave him alone unless it was truly important, or he was contacted, Naruto had cut him a deal. He gave the fox the temporary ability to see, feel, smell, taste, and hear all he did when he had naughty stuff. However, sometimes this was cut to just sight. If Naruto felt a real attachment or connection with the woman he was about to make love to, as in this case. Naruto whistled tunelessly as he looked down from a hillside near a large graveyard at Karakura town, a part of a city called Tokyo. He was very glad that wherever he was they spoke his own language called Japanese here. He had been lucky, he guessed. He followed the Catwoman down a steep hill. The town was complex and large with so many strange things, but he supposed he would have to get used to them. For now, he settled on ignoring all the different things he wanted to gawk at so he could look normal and fit in. Since it was night now, it didn't generally matter, but it was good practice. Naruto was curious as they approached an out-of-the-way shop with a sign reading Urahara's shop. He watched as Yoruichi changed into her human form and knocked on the door. She kept knocking until footsteps were heard. A little kid about 9 to 10 years old with red hair opened the door. He had a grumpy, half-asleep look on his face, but immediately awakened upon seeing the stark, undressed woman before him. He did the only thing he could do. He fainted. Naruto chuckled as Yoruichi stepped over the boy seemingly without a care in the world. She took some clothes off a rack, but didn't put them on, however, and gestured for Naruto to follow her. He stepped over the boy and closed the door, leaving the kid where he was. They stepped into a small room near the back of the shop, which was sparse except for a chair, a small desk, and a single bed. "Kasuke Urahara, the owner of this shop, leaves this room open in case I stop by. Sit down and spill your story. I hope it's good. I'd hate to have to kill someone who's so good under the covers." Naruto chuckled and sat in a chair. Yoruichi watched him expectantly. He sighed and began his tale. He started with how he wasn't from this world. Once he was sure he had her partially convinced of this, he moved on to his real age. And then finally his life history, including everything such as the Kyuubi. Yoruichi had great difficulty picking her jaw off the floor. The sheer insanity of his story was astonishing. Not even the whole crossing worlds and being 2,000 years old had fazed her that much. She was after all an ex-Shinigami, and knew people who were well over 1,000 years old. She was well over 500, though she never did count it. The crossing worlds thing was a bit more difficult to swallow, but she had decided it was believable and possible. However, his life story, his accomplishments, and his burdens were the hardest part to believe. However, this was not the most insane thing to her. Oh no, what was most insane was that she believed every single thing he had said. She groaned as she laid back, trying to absorb it all. "Tell you what, Foxy, you strip come over here and well entertain each other for a few hours, and in the morning I'll teach you about this world." Naruto nodded, as he quickly took off his shirt and pants, and walked over to her. Yoruichi would have the best night of sleep she's had for centuries. To say Urahara was surprised at finding Jinta Hanakari passed out in the main shop was a slight understatement. He was just about to kick the boy awake when he muttered something in his sleep about a beautiful undressed black woman. Yoruichi, he immediately forgot about the boy and sprinted to the shop's spare room. He was ecstatic at seeing his old friend again. He pushed open the door about to bellow a hello when he froze. Yes, Yoruichi was there, and she was in her human form sleeping. She was completely undressed with the sheets only covering from her hips down. This was not what made him freeze. She was lying on top of the chest of a tall, well-muscled blonde teen who was equally as undressed and was currently smiling at him as if nothing was wrong. He gave the blonde a smile and a wink as he sat himself down in the single chair. The blonde gave Yoruichi a shake and she woke up groggily. "If you want another round, give me a few minutes. I'm still sore from last night." He chuckled while Urahara contained his laughter. "Well, okay, I just hope you don't mind an audience." Her eyes snapped open, and she glared around the room spotting Urahara. She relaxed, lying back down on the teen's chest, and nuzzling into it, purring contentedly. Well, Yoruichi, I didn't know you were a pedophile." To his surprise, the woman snorted. "He's older than you, Urahara." The blonde in the bucket hat eyes widened at this. He threw a curious glance at the blonde. "Name's Naruto Uzumaki. I'll tell you my story, but on one condition." "Name it? Give me a cool hat like that except in black and white." Yoruichi looked at her lover in surprise, while Urahara roared with laughter. Naruto tried to get up, but Yoruichi was holding him down. "I need to get up, you know." She smiled and curled up on him much like a cat. "No, you don't, since I'm very comfortable here." Urahara watched and waited to see how Naruto would handle this. To his great surprise, a mischievous glint appeared in his eye, and a very fox-like grin appeared on his face. He lifted a hand and suddenly spanked the woman lying on top of him. Yoruichi's eyes widened as his hand connected sharply with her rear end, while Urahara's jaw dropped. He spanked her again, and she jumped off him hissing in anger. Urahara's jaw dropped further, and his eyes bugged out when Naruto growled and snarled at the cat woman. Yoruichi was mortified that the man she had come to greatly like had spanked her. She hissed something she only did when she was truly and royally pissed off. To her surprise and slight fear, he began to growl at her. He snarled slightly, a feral look passing over his face. It was then she noticed his pupils were slightly slitted. She then sensed it. He was emitting an aura of dominance, something she had never felt before. She fought against it as best she could, but failed. Urahara watched in shock as the two people hissed and growled in an obvious war for dominance, like any two animals. He was, however, completely shocked when Yoruichi was the first to bow her head. Naruto leaned over and kissed her. While the significance of this act was lost on Urahara, and would no doubt be lost on almost every other person on any planet in existence, it was not lost on Yoruichi. Being a person closely tied to a kind of animal on every level, her personality, the way her emotions and mind worked, and in a few ways the way her body reacted instinctively. They had fought for dominance, the way two strong animals would in a pack. However, this was for the position in the relationship. Yoruichi, to her shame, surprise, and slight arousal, had been the one to cave, the one to submit. However, when Naruto had kissed her, he had said quite clearly they were equals. This made her extremely happy. She grinned, making a silent promise to reward Naruto later. She dived under the covers, hiding her undressed form from sight. Naruto dressed and sat on the edge of the bed and retold his tale. She watched and giggled every now and then at Urahara's almost permanent shocked expression from Naruto's story. Urahara just couldn't believe it. Mostly it was the fact Yoruichi believed him. He introduced Naruto to the others who worked in and inhabited the store at times. They had figured it would be easiest to just say he traveled from another world, was old and powerful. The morning did have some shocks, however. Naruto had been freaked out by a blender blew up a microwave and started a fire with a toaster. Jinta had been unable to look at Yoruichi all day, and when Yururu had mentioned it, he had begun to hit her and pull her hair. However, everyone had frozen in shock, and in one case terror, as Naruto yanked Jinta up by the front of his shirt and stared in his eyes. Yoruichi watched as Naruto hauled the abusive boy off his feet and glared at him. "Why did you attack her?" "As she made fun of me." "Yururu, please repeat what you asked him." "I asked Jinta why he wasn't looking at Yoruichi." "Yep, sounds like making fun to me. So why did you attack her?" I don't know." Bad answer. To everyone's surprise, who had been expecting violence, he merely hit the boy hard on the head, making him yelp. "Hopefully you learned two things today. Never ever disrespect women. Secondly, never hurt or attack people without a reason. Do you understand?" Jinta nodded. Naruto smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. He turned, seeing everyone's curious expressions. He needed to learn respect, Yururu. The girl looked up from her depression, obviously believing she had caused the altercation. You need to learn to stand up to bullies. I'll show you how. Kasuk, please stand up. The odd eccentric man stood up, curious as to what would happen. This is how you deal with bullies, Yururu. He turned and kicked Urahara right between the legs. Yururu's eyes widened. Jinta and Tessai both covered their own important objects. Yoruchi was laughing madly. That's for letting this go on. Urahara nodded absently, as he lay curled up on the floor crying silently. He turned and faced both Jinta and Yururu. I need you two to do me a favor. Teach me about your world, okay? They nodded, and after an hour of learning the ins and outs of the store, they headed out into the street. 5 hours later of learning about cars, buses, planes, toasters, and the joys of pizza, Naruto had decided he liked this world a hell of a lot. Of course, a certain dark-skinned, voluptuous, and willing Catwoman had absolutely nothing to do with it. You're right. Naruto sighed slightly as he returned to the shop and settled down in the sole chair in his and Yoruchi's room. Urahara and Yoruchi had said they needed to tell him something. He sat and watched as the Catwoman stretched in a very feline manner while lying on the bed. Urahara was leaning against the wall. He supposed it was fair. They had taken he was from another world, and was a 2,000-year-old ninja with a currently 12,000-year-old demon locked within his gut. However, contrary to popular belief, which is everyone's, but the original designer of the seal, the fox was not actually locked up in Naruto's body. He was locked inside the boy's pure soul. Naruto pondered the idea of a large force of Shinigami instead of just one. He decided to accept it. Well, what do I do now with my life? Urahara spoke this time. Since you're 15, you should go to school. I'll set you up with the necessary paperwork, and you can work here in your spare time to earn money, so you can own your own apartment. There is also a way for us to unlock your powers. I can feel it now. For some strange reason you have Shinigami powers instead of just regular spiritual powers. But that will come much later. I have to prepare for it. So it will take about a day to set you up at school, and I can fix you with an apartment for now. Naruto was stunned at his generosity. Why are you gonna do this for me, Kasuk? 2 reasons. 1, Yoruchi would most likely hurt me very badly if I didn't. Naruto snickered while said woman grinned. 2nd, I'm very curious about you, about how powerful you will be, and about how you will work out as a Shinigami. Let's face it, I'm a scientist at heart, and you make me curious, so I'm gonna figure you out, and do what it takes to figure you out. Naruto nodded, and a maniac grin spread across his face, which was eerily similar to an eye patch wearing slightly insane Shinigami captain. I am really growing to like this world. The other two laughed. Ichigo Kurosaki frowned. It was turning out to be just a normal day in his life, with his father trying to assault him, and getting beat up for it, and then eating breakfast with his sisters, and heading to school. However, he had noticed someone his age that he had never seen before dressed in a school uniform hanging around, and Orihime was blabbering about some new person in the apartment across from her, who was apparently a new student. He was frowning because he had sensed something different about the one glance he got of the new guy, something powerful. He didn't know what it was, but he guessed it was spiritual power, like he had ability to see ghosts and all that. He ignored Kigo's posturing about something as someone else entered the room. He glanced towards them, but turned to fully face them, as he realized it was the new kid. The new guy was tall, about as tall as Ichigo himself. He was broad-shouldered and looked fit like a fighter. Ichigo noted he moved like a fighter too, stealthy, quiet, fast, and graceful. He was a blonde, but his hair had red tips, and he had a set of weird faint scars on his cheeks. The guy smiled and walked up to Ichigo and his little group of Kigo, Chad, and Mizuiro, and held out his hand, staring Ichigo right in the eyes. Hello, I'm new here. Who are you guys? Ichigo grunted. My name's Ichigo Kurosaki. A weird look flashed across Naruto's face. What, going to make fun of my name? Wouldn't dream of it. I'd be a hypocrite. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Maelstrom, huh? Got that right. Strawberry. Ichigo growled, but he suppressed a grin at the twinkle in Naruto's eye. Whatever, fish cake. Naruto laughed and was quickly introduced to the rest of the gang. Ichigo had been greatly surprised at his reaction to Chad. He looked up into Chad's face and said simply, "You're not so big," and then shook his hand. Tatsuki walked in feeling very good after smacking Chizuru around after she tried to molest Orihime once again. She spotted someone she didn't recognize and figured it was the new guy Orihime mentioned. He looked over his shoulder at her since he was talking with Kigo and gave her a dazzling smile. This large smile combined with deep blue twinkling eyes made her stomach do backflips. She fought down a blush and merely smiled in return. She froze when a strange look came into his eyes, but dismissed it. Orihime walked in and spotted the new boy. She approached. "Hello, Naruto." The boy turned and beamed at her. "Well, if it isn't my new neighbor Orihime, wasn't it?" She nodded and repressed the urge to touch the marks on his cheeks. She giggled and began to chat to him about different things. Neither noticed the astonished look sent Naruto's way because not only was he paying complete attention to Orihime's ramblings, he had also agreed to try her cooking at lunch. Only Tatsuki noticed that Naruto was staring at her face, not at her chest. Unfortunately, Chizuru walked in just then. Tatsuki growled and got ready to move as Chizuru grabbed Orihime and dragged her backwards, while screaming at Naruto about knowing his place or something like that. However, she froze when she saw the look on his face. The red-headed lesbian was livid. Some blonde idiot was talking to her Orihime. She was trying to comfort Orihime while ignoring her struggles when she heard a low growl. Ichigo had dismissed the redhead when he heard a growl. His head snapped towards Naruto, who was snarling silently. He moved fast. He walked right up into Chizuru's face, glaring down at her. The redhead was obviously terrified as Naruto approached her. Ichigo's eyes widened when Naruto raised his fist. Chizuru was shaking in fear. Orihime forgotten when the blonde raised his fist. She closed her eyes expecting a savage blow, but only felt a small and irritating flick on her forehead. Her eyes snapped open, looking up into ice-cold blue. Go! She fled to a seat on the other side of the room. Tatsuki and Ichigo were impressed with how he had used his presence along with body language to terrify Chizuru. Fighters knew how to do that. Chad was thinking something along the same lines. The rest of the class was split between awe and terror. Soon the teacher arrived, and the class sat giving occasional glances Naruto's way, who'd acknowledge with wave to the boys and a wink to the girls, which ended up with the female populace blushing heavily by the end of lunch. Ichigo was frowning more than usual. Chad had invited Naruto along with their group for lunch, which Ichigo didn't mind, but Naruto had been followed by Orihime and Tatsuki, which was slightly annoying but easily tolerable. However, soon the entire of the two girls' group was joining the boys on the roof. However, entertainment had apparently arrived. Tatsuki watched fearfully as Orihime pulled a thing out of her backpack and broke some of it off, handing the smaller piece to Naruto. She snickered slightly when one of the girls mentioned all the food must go to Orihime's watermelons, which Tatsuki, like all the other girls, was slightly jealous of her chest size, though she would never admit it. She watched in surprise as Naruto popped the piece of food in his mouth and chewed slowly, then froze. Ichigo's eyes widened as Naruto ate some of Orihime's food. He had done that once, repeat once, and figured it would be best if Naruto learned from experience. However, he, along with everyone else's jaws dropped when he swallowed and said, "Wow, that's good. Can I have some more, please, Orihime-sama?" Orihime blushed at the title, while others watched in awe and disgust as Naruto ate another large chunk of whatever it was Orihime had made. They eventually got used to it, no matter how disturbing. However, trouble was brewing. Its name, Kigo. Kigo was muttering under his breath about the unfairness of the world when he decided to do something about it. Food was sent flying when he leapt up, screaming and pointing a finger at Naruto. "Who the hell do you think you are? Huh?" Everyone was staring at Kigo in shock as his outburst continued. "Who do you think you are, turning up here and trying to have your way with all these pretty girls? I'm not having my way with them, unless they want me to, that is." Naruto replied in a calm voice, while smiling slightly. Kigo growled as a couple of girls blushed. However, before he could continue, Naruto spoke again. "You don't need to worry, Kigo. I'm not some random lecher. Plus, I think I've already got a girl. It's just not official yet." Everyone froze. Several girls, including Orihime and Tatsuki, to their own shock, were very disappointed to hear he was already with a girl. Kigo turned from righteous fury to lecherous curiosity. "So this girl, what is she like? How far have you gotten with her, He sidled up to Naruto, who grinned mischievously. "She's fantastic, tons of fun to be around and very playful. And you asked how far I've gotten with her, right?" Kigo nodded and Naruto smiled. "Well, I'm not a virgin, if that's what you're asking." The reactions were unique. The girls froze. Tatsuki dropped her drink and Orihime almost choked on her food. Kigo fell over while Ichigo sprayed his drink all over Mizuiro, who spluttered and choked while trying to avoid getting sprayed. Chad just stared. Naruto chuckled, took a sip of a can of soft drink and said, "I'm not lying," and laughed again. The others soon recovered. Tatsuki asked a simple question. "What do your parents say about this?" "Nothing, I'm an orphan." Tatsuki looked down in embarrassment, obviously sorry, but she looked up when she heard a gasp. Jealousy spiked into her when she saw Orihime hugging Naruto, her more than ample watermelons pressing up against his arm. He gave her a small smile. "It's alright, I'm fine with it. Lived with my guardian up until a while ago and moved into my own apartment, which is right across from Hime's here." No one asked any more serious questions of the blonde. They all began to chat with each other, Naruto and Ichigo occasionally swapping barbed remarks at each other. "Oh yeah, I'm really liking this world. Kyuubi will not be Naruto's sword. I decided what the hell his Zanpakuto will look like." Kyuubi will be like Kon in respect to having a body, and taking over Naruto when Naruto is out of his body. Naruto can also use Kyuubi's chakra, though it is very draining. He can hold 3 tails of chakra indefinitely, but after that, he's got a time limit. He can go all the way to 9 tails, but he can only hold that for a few minutes before passing out. He may be old, but it's still hard on him. Enjoy? Naruto grinned as he sat back, only a few minutes more to go at lunch. It was his first day at school, and he'd made a bunch of friends. He could already tell they were damn good people. "So Naruto," said a voice. The blonde looked over at Tatsuki. "This girl you're with, was she the one who took your virginity?" Everyone stopped and looked over. "Nope," was his simple reply. The world froze over. What? You heard me. She wasn't the one who I lost my virginity to. It was my first girlfriend back in my hometown when I was 14. Kigo looked like he had seen Kami, and Ichigo was just staring dumbly. Chad was watching blandly, no longer really surprised by anything Naruto could say. The girls were staring, flabbergasted. Orihime, still totally oblivious to her surroundings and the total implications of the conversation, asked the obvious question. "What was she like?" Naruto adopted a thinking face for a moment. She was about as tall as Tatsuki and had bubblegum pink hair," Naruto said absently. Ichigo gasped and choked on his drink. Chad slammed a massive hand into his back, clearing his blocked throat and knocking him into his food. Ichigo wheezed out, "Thank you," before coughing lightly and turning to Naruto, who was chuckling. "It was her natural hair color too, I'm not joking." The girls all ran their hands through their hair and started obviously thinking, what would I look like with pink hair? She was sweet and kind and very forgiving, but she also had one hell of a temper. Never went home without bruises when I saw her. Beautiful woman, why aren't you with her now? Everyone shivered as chill settled over the area, and Naruto seemed to withdraw into himself. Orihime reached out and touched his arm. She was murdered by a man I considered my brother. Everyone was now looking at Naruto, with shocked or sympathetic expressions on their faces. Chad was the only one who noticed Naruto's eyes. While his face was impassive, his eyes held a light of contentment. "You avenged her, didn't you?" Chad said, more of a statement than a question. Heads turned towards the massive Mexican, and then back to Naruto. Naruto nodded, and several people gaped. Naruto just shrugged dismissively. "I was acquitted. No jury in their right mind would convict me for killing someone who just killed someone I loved." Ichigo frowned while staring hard at Naruto, quickly coming to a decision. "Faye, it's not like you're a serial killer. I would have done the same thing most likely," Ichigo said in response. Chad nodded in agreement, and Naruto sighed in relief. He looked around, and a small tear traveled down his cheek as he saw the acceptance in everyone's eyes. Hell, it's not the whole truth. It's not even a fraction. I may be 2,000 years old, but it's the best feeling in the world to have friends and be accepted. He was roused from his musings when a tongue swiped along his cheek, collecting the tear and sending shivers down his spine. He turned to see Tatsuki sitting back and blushing crimson, a horrified expression on her face. Ichigo was shocked into sillydom. He'd never really seen Tatsuki do anything remotely feminine and absolutely nothing naughty stuffule. But she just licked a tear off Naruto's face. Holy shit! Kigo was stunned. Now he knew Naruto was a god among men. Note to self, ask him how to woo women. Orihime was surprised, but not stunned. She knew Naruto was very attractive, but she liked Ichigo, so it didn't matter. She knew that Tatsuki was attracted to the new guy, so she wasn't stunned like everyone else. When it happened, she was just surprised that Tatsuki actually did it. Chad was just sitting there. However, he was making light choking sounds that got Ichigo's attention. He tried slapping the huge male in the back, but it didn't work, so he stood and kicked him in the back between the shoulder blades. Chad gasped and sucked in some air. "Thanks, Ichigo," he said gruffly. Tatsuki was sitting there, mortified beyond belief at what she had done. "I can't believe I did that. What the hell is wrong with me? You don't just go around licking people's faces. It's just not right." While still mentally berating herself, Naruto got a sly look on his face. Ichigo was watching Naruto go from shock to mischievous fairly quickly. And his gut, which he had always trusted, told him one thing: that's a bad look. Ichigo just hoped it wasn't bad for him. Naruto grinned seductively as he leaned forwards and whispered into Tatsuki's ear. But everyone had good enough hearing to decipher the blonde's words. "I didn't know you were that kind of girl, Tatsuki-chan. I bet you're a wild one, eh? Got any whips and chains at home?" he asked casually. Ichigo's jaw hit the floor, and his eyes popped out of his head, along with everyone else's. Well, if you're not going to answer, I'll just have to find some other way, Naruto added. Tatsuki was still trying to respond, but all that came out were faint noises that sounded like a sea lion barking. So does she, Ichigo? Naruto asked suddenly. Ichigo spluttered in shock, and to his further shame, Chad roared with laughter. Ichigo growled and got to his feet. You're dead, Naruto. Surprisingly, both Ichigo and Tatsuki yelled this. The duo charged at the blonde, who jumped to his feet and backpedaled away from them. Only Chad noticed where he was headed. Naruto, stop! He called. The blonde didn't. His back hit the railing, but he didn't stop. He kept going, over and out of sight. Tatsuki screamed and rushed to the edge, and so did Ichigo, who had gone pale. Everyone was soon at the railing on the edge of the rooftop and looking down, very surprised and relieved to see Naruto has lodged himself with his hands and feet in between two windows on the 5th and 6th floor. To know how tall the building is, so go with it. He was currently looking for a way out. Ichigo looked around at everyone's relieved expressions. So how are we gonna get him out of this mess? Any ideas, people? He called. Orihime had a plan. We could all take off our shirts and tie them together in a rope. Then we could lower it down so he can climb up like in Rapunzel, she suggested. Everyone stared at her oddly. While slightly stupid, as the girls would not take their shirts off, it was a surprisingly smart plan for Orihime. Or we could take them off and tie them up into a blanket. Then we could get under him like the firemen do. Or we could make a human ladder, or maybe we could catch a really big bird and fly down to get him up, or... Everyone started to ignore her ramblings as she went on into scenarios that were increasing in magnificence and decreasing in plausibility. Everyone heard Naruto grunt and looked back down at him. Don't worry, guys, I got it covered, he told the group. Ichigo was the first to figure out his plan. Naruto was looking over his shoulder at a nearby tree, which was about 10 feet away from the building. Do you think you can make it, Naruto? He asked. Naruto looked up and grinned foxily while nodding. Tatsuki flushed slightly, as they could visibly see Naruto's muscles ripple as he tensed just before he launched himself backwards. In an amazing feat of acrobatics, he turned in mid-air and disappeared into the tree's foliage. Did he make it? Orihime asked in a small whisper. She was answered when a blonde-haired head popped out of the top of the tree and swiveled to face them with a happy grin. That crazy son of a bitch! Ichigo laughed and then frowned. How you gonna get down? Easy, I'm not. Oh shit! Away from the railing, people! Everyone backed up, unsure what was going to happen. There was a loud grunt of exertion before Naruto was once again flying in midair, but back towards the building. He latched his hands onto the railing and hauled himself over, grinning and bowing like a showman. Tatsuki stormed up and launched a fist into his gut. Don't do crazy stuff like that again! And if you ever say anything about me like that again, prepare for the most vicious beatdown of your life. Got that? She asked viciously. Chad's eyes widened as Naruto merely grunted and shook off the blow. The only other person who could do that was Chad himself. For Ichigo and Tatsuki, it merely confirmed their suspicions on him being a pro fighter. The bell rang and everyone gathered their stuff and headed off to the last classes of the day. Ichigo was walking calmly along an alley when he saw some punks on skateboards knock over a glass bottle with some flowers in it. He growled in indignance as he ran up to them and kicked the one who was trailing in the back. The punk's head slammed into the ground, knocking him out. The other stopped. You got a death wish, pal, the biggest and ugliest of them said as he stepped forward. Nobody jumps one of my boys for no reason and lives to tell the tale. He stepped forward, his camo pants and white shirt ruffling slightly in a sudden breeze. Was Ichigo's reply. That's all you gotta say. The punk charged and was met with a foot to the face. He fell down and Ichigo's foot slammed into his back repeatedly. Little Yama's down. We gotta help him, said one of them. The others replied, Are you crazy? No way am I taking on that psycho. Ichigo, meanwhile, was stamping his foot into little Yama's head so hard his face was being buried into the pavement. He finished and looked up, giving Yama's accomplices a death glare. Listen up, you pawn scum! You see that? He asked venomously, pointing at the knocked-over bottle. First question, what do you think that is? You, the one in the middle. Answer, he barked. The one he was addressing looked around, and was frightened to find he was the one in the middle. Wait, you talking to me? I guess somebody left those flowers for some kid who got killed here. Ichigo nodded, and then kicked him in the face, sending him flying and causing the other two to cry out. Correct, Ichigo yelled. Wait! Chill out, said one of them nervously. Now, the next question. Why is that vase lying down? I guess one of us knocked it over when we were skateboarding through here, said the shorter one who was shaking in fear. Ichigo delivered a roundhouse kick to both of them. You idiots catch on fast. Now go and apologize, or next time the flowers will be here for you. A shadow covering his face, and flames appeared behind him, making him look like some sort of hellish deity. The two he had kicked screamed and bolted, with a third following, all screaming, "We are sorry." There! That should keep those assholes from showing their ugly faces around here. A girl appeared behind him, standing next to the pole. Sorry about that, I'll bring you some. Hey Ichigo! Ichigo turned in the direction of the loud voice, and saw Naruto jogging towards him. I saw you beat up those guys. You're pretty good. So who's the girl? She's pretty. The girl behind him blushed. Wait, you can see her? Ichigo stuttered. Yeah. Why am I supposed to be blind? Naruto asked, cocking his head to the side. She's a ghost. Ichigo said simply. What? Naruto yelped. The ghost giggled, drawing their attention. Thank you for your defense. I think now I might be able to rest peacefully. Ichigo nodded slowly. No problem. I'll bring you some new flowers tomorrow. See ya. He turned and grabbed Naruto, who was gaping at the girl, and dragged him off. Naruto was shocked beyond belief. He had heard from Yoruichi and Urahara about the pluses and hollows and Shinigami, but he had yet to see anything other than that hollow, so it was a bit of a shock to see a ghost for the first time. Ichigo let Naruto go after a bit, and looked at him, as Naruto followed him to wherever they were going. Why are you here? The orange-haired teen demanded. I got lost, Naruto said quickly. Ichigo sighed, looking up at the sky. So you can see ghosts? He asked rhetorically. Yeah, I guess, Naruto answered. For how long? That was my first time, My whole life, my little sister Karen can see them. And my other little sister Yuzu can sense them, but my dad can't see anything. We run a small clinic nearby. Come on, we have stuff to talk about. I guess you might as well meet my family. Naruto nodded and followed. Ichigo let Naruto look over his home for a few seconds before beckoning him inside. He opened the door and walked in. Naruto followed slowly. You're late. Ichigo ducked, but Naruto wasn't so lucky. He was sent slamming into the floor. Kurosaki Ishin froze. He just kicked a stranger. Dad, you idiot! Ichigo was about to attack his father when his father doubled over with a fist planted in his gut, courtesy of Naruto. Then he received an elbow to the back of the head. With a groan, he crumpled over. Ichigo stared at Naruto, who was smiling mischievously. Your family's fun. I like them already. So this is your dad, huh? From the look of him, I would have thought he's the uncle no one ever talks about. Ichigo chuckled. Naruto turned as a giggle, and a dry laugh came from behind him. Yo, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I'm a new kid at Ichigo's school, and since I can apparently see ghosts, Carrot Top thought he'd introduce me to his family. The short light brown-haired girl giggled again as Naruto walked over and settled himself down in a chair. She handed him a bowl of rice. I'm Karen. Karen introduced herself. Naruto grinned back at her. Yuzu turned back and gasped. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I gave you a full bowl. She apologized. You did, Naruto replied. Ichigo chuckled while Yuzu gaped at his speed eating. Don't worry, Yuzu. He'll be fine. He ate some of Orihime's cooking, lived, and liked it. Yuzu and Karen, who both knew of Orihime's cooking from the one time she had been asked to babysit them, looked at Naruto in awe. What? Do I have something on my face? They shook their heads. Meanwhile, Ishin picked himself off the floor and sat down at the table. So who's your friend Ichigo? He asked. New kid at school. He can see ghosts too. Ishin began to cry. It's so unfair. Why can't I see them? His three kids sighed and didn't answer the rather common question. Unlike on previous nights, he got an answer. It's because you're not cool like us. The three Kurosaki kids doubled over in laughter at Naruto's statement, while their father sobbed piteously. He suddenly stopped and punched Ichigo in the face, knocking him to the ground. That's for being late. Ichigo jumped up and tackled his father. A small brawl ensued with lots of shouting, amazingly not damaging anything. Naruto's swear dropped. Does this happen a lot? Yeah, Karen said while getting another bowl of rice. Dad thinks it toughens Ichigo up by attacking him randomly and without warning. He hasn't realized yet that he usually ends up the worst hurt of the two. Naruto then noticed someone else in the room. Hey Ichigo, you've got a visitor. Ichigo stopped his yelling at his father and spotted the glasses-wearing ghost. Ichigo took a couple of swipes at the ghost, trying to make him go away when Naruto spoke again. I think it's cool to see ghosts, don't you, Karen? He asked nonchalantly. No, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm in denial. Naruto's sweat dropped and coughed lightly. Suddenly there was a yell of, "Drop your guard!" And Ichigo was pinned to the floor until he threw his father off of him. They stood, lined up, and swung, hitting each other in the face. Isshin collapsed again. The lesson was free, came the mumbled answer to the reason behind the fight. Ichigo grunted. Never mind dinner, I'm going to my room. I'm sure you can find your way home, Naruto. See ya tomorrow. Ichigo disappeared with a wave. Naruto sighed and stood. Thanks for the rice, Yuzu. It was really great. It's been good to meet you, Karen and Kurosaki-san. Karen just nodded while Yuzu waved happily. Isshin mumbled from the floor. Bye, Naruto. And then the blonde was gone. Wow, you sure have way with kids, Dad, said Karen sardonically. Me? What did I do? Came the childish reply. Dad, you can't go beating up Ichigo anymore. He's going through a rough time right now. He says he's seeing more spirits than ever before, said Yuzu. What? Why would he talk about things like this with you too, and probably that Naruto kid and not me, his dad? It doesn't make sense, said the now frantic Isshin. Sure it does, said Karen. For one thing, you're over 40. And another, emotionally, you're still at a preschool level, Dad. Admit it. Isshin staggered over to a huge poster of his wife, crying, Oh my dear, why? Maybe it's because they're hitting puberty. But our daughters are being so cold to me. What do I do? What do I do? He wailed. Karen's sweat dropped and groaned. For starters, take down that poster. The next day, Naruto was walking to school. Passing the weird devastation, which Orochi had said was a hollow attack, he saw a shaken Ichigo walking along with the ghost from yesterday. Hey man, what's up? Ichigo gave him a funny look, then decided to explain. Since you can see spirits, I guess I had better explain. I saw this weird monster that was trying to attack this spirit here when this short girl in a weird outfit came along and cut it in half with a sword. I guess they were spirits of some sort, since no one else could see them, only the damage they caused. Naruto frowned and acted shocked. Must have been a hollow and a Shinigami. They headed off to school. No more words spoken. That night, while Ichigo kicked Kuchiki Rukia in the ass, and subsequently got tied up and explained all the ins and out of the spirit world through very bad diagrams that looked like bunnies, Naruto was having a busy night as well that was a lot more dangerous. Naruto stared around amazed at the massive underground training ground. He was finally going to become a Shinigami, an apparently dangerous process. This cavern I built myself. Also, time passes differently here, for this moment anyway. I set up a one-use device that changes time. Roughly 72 hours in here will be about 8 out there, so no need to worry about missing school. Naruto sighed in relief. I know nothing like this exists in Bleach, but I finished this chapter and then remembered Naruto was in that hole for 3 days. And for the sake of the plotline, I needed him to turn up at school the next day. He looked over at Orochi, who gave him an encouraging grin while Urahara brandished his cane. Naruto's sweat dropped until the end of the cane poked him in the forehead. Naruto felt weird, like his body wasn't working properly. Even Kyuubi was saying something was off. Then he spotted the chain connecting him to his body. This was supposed to happen, right? Orochi nodded and Naruto grinned slowly. Okay, now what? Now you fight Ururu. Naruto gave Urahara a weird look. You serious? He received a nod. Fine, but why? Orochi answered this time. To give you a chance to learn how to move in your spirit body. Naruto nodded and looked over at Ururu, who was putting on a helmet and padded gloves. Urahara held up another set, but Naruto waved him away. Ururu charged. Even though Naruto was not expecting her to move so fast, 2 millennia of fighting experience allowed him to adapt. He dodged, and his eyes widened as a great explosion of dirt and rock came from where her fist impacted with the floor. She advanced again. Orochi had only seen him fight once, and it had ended quickly. She now watched, amazed, as he quickly dodged and occasionally blocked and deflected Ururu's attacks. Urahara was even more amazed as Naruto had learned how to move so quickly. His eyes widened when Naruto threw a punch. Finally, after almost 5 minutes of fighting, Naruto has decided to reciprocate. The punch connected with Ururu's helmet, sending her rocketing back. Ururu got back up. Naruto's eyes narrowed as her eyes changed. She disappeared and reappeared in front of him, about to deliver a devastating kick to his face. Jinta winced as it thudded home, but gaped when Naruto was only moved back a few inches. Urahara grabbed Ururu before she could attack again, and she seemed to calm down, returning to her normal timid self. Lesson 1 cleared. Good job, Naruto. Naruto grinned at Urahara, who smiled back. Even though you probably were before, we can be sure now that you're using your Ryatsu. Naruto nodded. Suddenly, Tensai appeared with a massive axe and slammed it down on the chain connecting him to his body, severing it. Naruto stared at it before he collapsed, gasping. What the hell is wrong with me? Urahara answered. Once your chain of fate has been severed, you can no longer return to your physical body. You're dying. Naruto's eyes shot wide. What the ing hell is wrong with you? I don't want to die, you asho. His mouth was covered by Yoruchi's delicate hand, muffling his shouts. Listen. He glared for a few seconds before sighing and looking at Urahara, who was grinning. Soon your chain will start to erode from the point it was severed. When it reaches your chest, you will become a hollow and we'll be forced to kill you. Naruto growled, definitely not wanting to become some freaky monster. So what do I do? He asked. You must finish lesson 2, my fellow blonde. Once you do that, you will be able to access your dormant Shinigami powers, which we know are there, thanks to those tests we conducted during those first few days. Naruto nodded at Yoruchi's explanation. Okay, let's get started. Urahara grinned. Begin. Naruto blinked. Nothing had happened. But he did suddenly feel weightless. Aw crap. He fell down the hole, Tensai jumping in after him. Naruto lay on the bottom for a few seconds before he swiftly got up. He immediately heard Tensai speak. Bakudo 99, restrict. Naruto groaned in pain as his arms were clamped behind him with what felt like metal restraints. Urahara called down. Naruto, you got to climb out to regain your Shinigami powers. Naruto groaned, not bothering to point out how stupid it was to tie up his arms. Not too long ago, he figured out chakra techniques do not work with Ryatsu. You have 72 hours to get out. After that, you're dead. Naruto nodded and sat, trying to think a way out. 24 hours later, 48 hours remaining. Naruto groaned. He hurt all over. He'd fallen asleep for about 8 hours, which had astonished Urahara and Yoruchi. He'd fallen asleep after spending an hour trying to figure a way out. He had then spent the next 15 hours trying to run up the walls, which was subsequently why he hurt so much. 5 hours later, 43 hours remaining. Naruto cried out as he slammed into the floor. He tried once again to get out, this time by flipping from wall to wall. But his tied-up arms had thrown his balance off, and had resulted in him crashing and burning. 20 hours later. 23 hours remaining. Naruto had another rest period of 8 hours, using the remaining 12 to try and break the bands on his arms that didn't work out either. 8 hours later. 15 hours remaining. Well, I fell asleep again. God damn it, how the hell do I get out of this place? Wait a second. Why didn't I think of that before? His shout woke up Yoruchi, who had curled up like a cat near the rim of the hole. Urahara approached the hole, asking the obvious question. I wonder what he's gonna do now. Hey Urahara, can you hear me? Naruto called. Yeah, how's that going? Not all that good, but I was thinking, since I can't get out of the hole, why not just make the hole a whole lot bigger? He asked. What the hell is he planning to do? Yoruchi watched in curiosity as Naruto stood in the exact center of the shaft and seemed to concentrate. And then she felt it. Evil. An aura of pure malice and rage had begun to fill the air. Urahara felt it too and stared down at its apparent source. Naruto. Yoruchi gasped as a red energy seemed to pour out of Naruto and form a fox-like shape around him. With its arms bound, he roared and the entire structure shook. A large tail of energy slammed into the wall of the shaft, not damaging it, but once again sending out a shockwave. Naruto roared again, this time deeper. The evil and rage in the air was making both ex-Shinigami sweat. This must be Kyuubi. Urahara came to a conclusion in a whisper. Yeah, this is just so evil, how can he stand it? I dunno. Naruto roared again as 2 more tails formed, and a massive amount of killing intent invaded the air. Unprepared, Urahara fell to his knees. Damn it, this is as bad as Kenpachi. Yoruchi, who had also gotten back to her feet, nodded. The level of ki continued to rise, as a 4th tail formed, and the energy surrounding him solidified into a body. Another tail formed, and another after that. The very earth was shaking from the amount of power being released. Urahara knew that the special stone he lined his cavern with would stop any signs of this from reaching the outside world. But he had no doubt that the aura of evil would be felt for miles by those sensitive enough. Then it all just died. Urahara shook himself to regain composure, and kicked awake both Jinta and Yururu, who had fainted previously, and looked down in the hole. Naruto was laying face down, and breathing hard. God damn it. With no way to release the energy buildup, I couldn't hold it as long. Damn, he whispered as he passed out. 14 hours later, 10 minutes remain. Naruto groaned as he woke up in a small blackened crater. He looked over to see a very tired-looking Tatsuki, whose shirt was drenched in sweat. He then noticed his chain was eating away at itself furiously. He only had seconds left. A few hours earlier, Ichigo had just finished off the hollow that had tried to hurt his family when an evil aura flooded the area. He fell to his knees, and behind him, Rukia collapsed. Hey Rukia, what the hell is this? A hollow? No. I have no idea what it is. It cut out. Ichigo sighed in relief, and then passed out. Rukia got to work covering it up. Yuruchi bolted upright as Naruto began to scream in pain. She ran over to the shaft where Urahara was staring impassively down. She whimpered. No, he failed. Maybe, but I don't think so. The screaming continued. His mask is forming, but he's fighting it. He could still become a Shinigami. Yuruchi nodded and looked down at the screaming warrior. Come on, Naruto, you can do this. Inside Naruto's mind, he awoke to see a calm mountain top. He looked out over the edge, which showed a deep, lush valley. He turned when he heard a voice calmly say, Hello, Naruto. Hello, Naruto, said another voice. Naruto turned slowly and sucked in a breath. Two beings were behind him. The former was a large man in fire-red armor. He had a katana sheathed at his side, and a large helmet with spikes protruding from the top to form a crown. He looked every part like a terrible and ancient king. The latter was curled around the throne the first was sitting on. It was long, large, and had bluish-white scales with massive leathery wings. Its tail had spines running along it until it ended in a large, curved blade. Its long neck was topped with a leathery frill, and on its head were two large horns that curved forward like that of a bull. Its feet had wicked-looking talons that could probably cut through stone. If you don't know what this thing is, you're retarded. We are, the man on the throne said in a deep and authoritative voice. You're Zanpakuto, said the dragon in a deep, rumbling voice that made the flat mountaintop shake. Our name is, what was that? I didn't hear you. The two, the king and the dragon as Naruto thought of them, spoke again in unison. It is a pity that you cannot reach us yet. But no matter, now is not the time for such things. The dragon lifted its head and opened its mouth, blasting out a jet of air, sending Naruto flying. He screamed out as he fell at the mountain top, nothing but kilometers of air below him until solid ground. He heard something above him and turned in mid-air to see the king standing on the dragon's head as it flew in circles nearby. You have Shinigami powers. You must find them. This world is dying as you die. You must find your true power before you die, or we are all lost forever. The two said in unison once again. As he spoke, hundreds upon hundreds of boxes began to fall out of the sky as the mountain slowly disintegrated. Oh great, how am I supposed to do this? Kyuubi's no help. I haven't been able to contact him since this started. Shit. Naruto stared out at the boxes. Well, it's my power, so I guess it's connected to me. What the hell do I do? Okay, I gotta concentrate. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated, searching for his inner power. He felt a spark of something and opened his eyes. A red ribbon connected him to a specific box. He tugged the ribbon, bringing the box towards him. It opened, showing a hilt of a sword. Hurry up and take us! The king's and the dragon's voices commanded in perfect sync. Naruto grabbed the hilt. He heard the two voices speak to him again. Good. We will meet again. Do not worry if you do not know our name. We are patient on our mountain. Back in the real world, the screaming continued, and the white liquid continued to pour out, covering Naruto's face as he screamed. Tezai gasped as the bands holding his arms began to crack and break. It's at its limit, boss. I am switching to suppression mode. He slammed his fists into the ground, causing a small shockwave. Bakuto 99, Part 2 Banki. I don't know what it is exactly. This is what it sounds like on the English EP. First incantation, bandage. Second incantation, 100 deadbolts. Naruto kept screaming, while the others up top looked on in anticipation and worry. ITS too late, shouted Tezai. Final incantation, fatal seal. He didn't hear the shout of, and no, from Yuruchi. But he was too slow, and Naruto exploded with power. A bright red flame shot out of the shaft, blasting Yuruchi, Urahara, and the two kids backwards. A large ball of flame launched out of the shaft and slammed to earth a short distance away. Everyone stood and stared, waiting for the smoke to clear. A figure emerged from the smoke. Yuruchi sucked in a breath. The first thing she saw was the black hakama, and then a red undershirt. Then she saw the mask and gaped. Naruto had a hollow mask on his face, but it wasn't like any she had seen before. It had the same standard shape, but two long spikes ran across Naruto's head. On each side, the mask had one spike below and above his ear. It also covered the top of his head, going back about 2 inches. The mask was two colors, red and white. It was mostly red. The red went down on either side of his face, separated by a long white line about an inch wide. The eye sockets were slightly slanted and glowing red. 3 white slashes broke up the red on either side of his face in the same position as his whisker marks. It also had 4 white spikes protruding from the top, giving the impression of a crown. All in all, it looked like a king's crown. Want a picture? Go to the link in my profile. Remember that this is a rough picture, since it's where I got the idea from. But it almost perfectly fits the king theme, except for armor color, and drop all the eyes and skulls. And change the sword and the throne from ice to a normal-looking throne. They stared as Naruto reached up and pulled it off, flinging it aside where it smashed on a rock. He grinned at them, and Yoruichi laughed in relief. She may be one tough cookie, but she still worries about her friends. He ambled towards them, and then they saw his Zanpakuto. Or should it be Zanpakutos? Naruto felt their weight on his shoulders, and drew them slowly. Their scabbards were positioned in an X on his back. He drew them, showing off 2 katanas that were about half a foot longer than a normal katana, and a couple of inches thicker. Naruto grinned as he examined the blades. He swung them experimentally, getting used to the weight. He then went through some simple katas of one of the styles he knew. Yoruichi walked over and stared at the blonde's blades. 2 of them? That's rare. Naruto smirked, glad to know he was, while not unique, was part of a small group. "Huh! I made it!" he shouted before he passed out. Yoruichi chuckled, and then it turned into full-blown laughter. "I'll take him home. I know there's a third step, but I doubt he needs it, eh? Yeah. He already knows how to use his Zanpakuto, or at least how to fight and use a sword, so he should be good for now. I'll use step 3 to unlock his Shurikai." Yoruichi nodded as she slung Naruto over her shoulder and climbed the ladder back up to the shop. The next day outside of the school, Naruto was dragged into an alley by Ichigo. "Hey! What's up, Ichigo? You looked freaked, man." Ichigo went on to explain what happened in the night, and how he met the Shinigami Rukia, and how he became a substitute Shinigami, and how he killed the Hollow. Naruto whistled. "And why are you telling me all this?" he asked. Ichigo froze. He was stumped. "I dunno. I guess because I mentioned it before I knew all this. Remember how I said I saw her and that Hollow earlier yesterday?" Naruto nodded and grinned minutely, patting his friend on the back. "Well, thanks for sharing, Mr. Hero. Wonder why your family doesn't remember. That is kind of strange. Oh well." It just slipped Naruto's mind to tell Ichigo he was a fellow Shinigami. Later on the way to class, Ichigo bumped into Orihime, knocking her down, and rather blandly said, "Oh, it's you. I'm sorry." Before Tatsuki could yell at him, Naruto slammed his fist on the back of the orange head, sending him careening into the wall. "That is not how you treat a woman, team. God, you're worse than Ero-sensei." Tatsuki sent him a weird look, but said nothing. "Hey, you okay, Haim?" he asked, offering her a hand. Orihime blushed slightly as she picked up her things and took the offered hand. Ichigo walked over, rubbing his throbbing head. "I'm sorry, Orihime. I'll be more careful next time." He apologized sincerely. She blushed again, this time more fiercely. It's okay. I have volleyball in a couple of minutes." "Why yeah, that's right, volleyball," she repeated as she jogged off down the hall. "What's the matter with her?" Ichigo asked, nonplussed. "I wonder." Tatsuki trailed off as she went into thought. Naruto grinned slyly. "It was probably your ugly-ass face, Ichigo." Tatsuki laughed as Naruto ducked a punch from Ichigo. In class, Ichigo was lounging lazily in a chair while Naruto and the gang of guys chatted about the truck that crashed into his house last night. When someone else entered the room, Naruto became alarmed. Something was different about her. "Hello. You're Ichigo, aren't you?" Ichigo turned and suddenly looked like he had seen the devil himself. "I'll be sitting next to you from now on. Name's Rukia, by the way." Ichigo jumped out of his chair. "Hi, it's you." He pointed a quivering finger at the new girl. Kigo asked the obvious question. "Ichigo, what the hell's wrong with you?" Chad frowned at his orange-haired friend. "You know each other?" Naruto grinned evilly. "Stop. Mayhem time. Rukia." Naruto said the girl's name in such a way that it seemed he was remembering the name. Everyone looked at him in the thinking pose as the proverbial light bulb lit up above his blonde head. "Hey Ichigo, wasn't that the name of that chick you knocked up the other night?" Naruto asked, loudly. Ichigo's eyes widened, and he went white as a sheet. Kigo spluttered and his eyes almost popped out of his head. Mizuiro looked slyly at Naruto, obviously seeing he was up to no good. Chad suspiciously started coughing. Rukia had the funniest reaction. She pointed at Naruto and went purple. "WJ, what the hell are you talking about?" she screeched. Naruto let fly a full belly laugh, but dived out of his chair when Ichigo lunged at him yelling, "I'll kill you." When they finally got Ichigo to calm down, he settled for glaring at Naruto, who was still smiling smugly until Rukia kicked him in the shin. Naruto, grumbling about uptight idiots being unable to take a joke, rubbed his shin as Ichigo denied having ever met Rukia. Class started. Later, in a deserted courtyard, Ichigo glared at Rukia. "What the hell are you playing at, you freaky little nut job?" Rukia smiled serenely back at him. "How scary, you big brute. Jeepers, you're not gonna hurt me, are you?" she whimpered falsely, cutely sucking on her index finger. Ichigo stared. "First of all, you can knock it off with that goody two-shoes act. Well, I think it's pretty good, considering I learned it overnight." A new voice spoke up. "I'll give you a 7 for performance, and a 10 for quick learning." Ichigo whirled round and spotted Naruto. He instantly relaxed, but noticed Rukia was still tense. "Relax, he knows everything," Ichigo stated. Rukia whipped around and glared at him. "What? Why the hell did you tell him?" she hollered. "Because he can see spirits like I can before I became a Shinigami temporarily," Ichigo replied calmly. Rukia frowned, but went on to explain how she couldn't return home because she lost all her powers while Ichigo was still a Shinigami. "You have to perform my duties now, Ichigo," she told him resignedly. Naruto chuckled at his blank expression, continuing to watch the proceedings. He frowned when Ichigo refused to help. As Ichigo turned to walk away, he noticed Naruto smirking at him. Then he heard Rukia say simply, "I see you leave me no choice." He turned to meet a palm to the face. After he felt the pain, he felt strangely disembodied. Ichigo looked around and spotted his body, and Naruto roaring with laughter. "Aw, crap! What happened to my body?" he demanded. "I ejected your soul from your body," Rukia explained. "Oh, me next." Rukia looked incredulously at Naruto, who smiled back cheekily, and jumping up and down like a rabbit. "You idiot! This doesn't make you a Shinigami," she scolded him sternly. "I'll believe it when I see it. Come on, give it a shot," Naruto insisted. Rukia glared and let out her breath in a huff. "Fine," she hit him. Ichigo stared dumbfounded. Rukia stared dumbfounded, and both looked at the glove. Rukia stuttered. This shouldn't be able to do this." Naruto howled with laughter as they looked up. He was bent over, tears streaming down his face. "You should see your faces. You look so stupid," Naruto wheezed. Rukia glared. "How? Simple. I became a Shinigami around the same time he did with the help of an ex-Shinigami via a very dangerous method." Rukia frowned. Only one ex-Shinigami was nuts enough to do something like this. She'd talk to him later. Naruto stared down at his body for a few seconds before clicking his fingers and shouting, "Eureka!" Rukia's eyes widened as Naruto shoved a hand into his spirit body's stomach, pulled out a large red orb, and shoved it into his body. He stood back for a few seconds before his body convulsed and sat upright. Ichigo cried out and fell down. Naruto watched as his now occupied body looked around at its surroundings, then stared at its hands. His eyes widened when the hands touched its chest. His jaw dropped when the body opened his zipper and had a look inside. Rukia turned away, blushing crimson. The body zipped up his pants slowly and sat ramrod straight. "I'm a guy," it uttered. "Ah! No! I'm a guy!" Naruto's body howled. "What the hell, Kyuubi? You are a guy!" Rukia and Ichigo stared at Naruto, who gave them a look saying, "I'll explain later." Kyuubi and Naruto's body turned and gasped, seeing Naruto in his Shinigami form. "Well, you see, I'm not really a dude," it said quietly. "What? I thought everyone would take me more seriously if they thought I was a guy. And you didn't tell me this, why? Because I was embarrassed. Happy now? No. Listen, I'm going off with these two for a bit. Look after my body and don't get into trouble. And whatever you do, don't go back into school yet. Oh, and look after Ichigo's body too," Naruto added as an afterthought. Rukia, Naruto, and Ichigo were walking away when they heard a rather lighter version of Naruto's voice say, "Oh, this Ichigo kid has such nice muscles." I wonder what he looks like with his shirt off. They froze like roses in a blast of liquid nitrogen. Rukia blushed, because she'd thought the same thing only a few minutes ago. Ichigo reddened, because a female of some sort was complimenting him. And Naruto. Naruto was blushing in mortification at Kyuubi, saying that in his body. They turned to see Kyuubi squeezing one of Ichigo's biceps, which looked disturbing in Naruto's body. Kyuubi! Kyuubi's head snapped up, and she blushed crimson. Sorry! She apologized meekly. She smirked slyly as she formed a seal. In a puff of smoke, she looked like Naruto in his Orihime no Jutsu form. She then hefted Ichigo's body and walked away. Naruto grinned sheepishly at Rukia and Ichigo's astounded looks. I guess I have some explaining to do, eh? The two nodded. Well, how to put this, He thought about it, and then just decided to explain how he did Yoruichi and Urahara. Rukia stared wide-eyed as Naruto finished his story. As so you're a 2,000-year-old traveler from another world who has a demon inside them, who is now controlling your body, and is actually female, and you recently became a Shinigami? She rambled out. Naruto nodded meekly. Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. Both Ichigo and Rukia were thinking the same exact thing. Holy shit. I believe this. Naruto grinned at their expressions. So what do we do now? Rukia's head snapped up, and she shook herself out of her daze, pulled out her phone, and checked the message on it. Follow me. There's a hollow nearby. As Naruto and Ichigo followed Rukia, Ichigo decided to ask some detailed questions. So about you killing the guy who killed your girlfriend. Obviously it was true, but what really happened? He stared pointedly at Naruto as he asked the question. Naruto sighed and thought back. All of the guys would worship him if they were to hear this. We were 20 and celebrating a mass birthday. Sakura-chan's and my twin sons, my 2 twin daughters from Anko-chan, my son with Hinata-chan, and as well as the confirmation of Ino-chan's first child being on the way. Everything had gone deathly quiet within a 30-meter radius of them. Wait a second. How many girls was that? Ichigo asked, looking rather disbelieving. 4. Naruto answered simply. He could hear the gongs ringing in his 2 companions' heads. You had 4 girlfriends. Rukia whipped round, staring at him in horror. Correction, wives. And no, there weren't 4, there were 7. There was also Tenten, Temari, and Hanabi. But Temari-chan and Tenchan wouldn't sleep with me until we were married, and Hanabi-chan didn't want a child at the time. Naruto explained like it was nothing. Was this common in your world? Naruto was surprised at Rukia asking such a question. No. But I did love them all and still do. Kami-sama, I miss them. It was, however, welcomed with open arms, as it was learned that my massive chakra capacity, which is naturally higher than pretty much everyone else's, was passed on to my kids. That naturally made us into a clan, but I'm getting off topic. Back to your question. We were having a party when Sasuke, the man I told you about, turned up. He had these special eyes that were very rare, since his clan had been wiped out. But they weren't as strong as they could be, since he needed to kill his best friend to gain the final level. Naruto paused to let this sink in. He attacked my family. We got the children to safety, and he and I fought. I beat him up pretty badly, and he was furious. So the asswipe decided to go for the next best thing. Someone who had at least liked him for a little bit. That person was Sakura. He killed her before I could stop him without a second thought. Luckily for me, not so luckily for him, it didn't work. Sasuke didn't have friends. He was incapable of love or compassion, so even if he had killed me, he wouldn't have achieved his goal. Ichigo glared at nothing, while Rukia stared straight ahead, trying not to cry at the grief in his voice and the tragedy of the tale. So then you killed him? No. Ichigo looked over in confusion. I was almost insane with rage, and I would have torn him apart until Kyuubi told me to take my revenge slowly. So this is what I did. I knocked him out and tied him up. You see, the reason Sasuke was such an ass was because his brother had slaughtered the rest of the clan by himself. I think it had something to do with them trying to kill him, or something like that. Anyway, his sole purpose in life was to kill his brother then revive his clan. So I decided to take all of it away from him, one by one. Ichigo stared in morbid curiosity as Naruto continued, with venom seeping into his voice. I hunted down his brother Itachi. I fought him and slew him, then took the evidence his head back home. I walked into Sasuke's cell. Flashback. Sasuke was tied up in a chair with a chakra suppression device on his chest. A table separated him from the only other chair in the room, which Naruto sat in. Hey, I've got a present for you. Naruto spat. What? A worthless lady like your wife so I can revive the greatest clan to ever exist? Sasuke snapped back arrogantly. Naruto gave Sasuke the sickest, smuggest, most sadistic, and most pleased grin he could muster. Nope. Naruto then plopped Itachi's eyeless head down on the table and switched to the devil's leer. Happy days, motherer. Naruto chirped in the sweetest, most cheerful voice he could. Sasuke stared and stared, then he glared at Naruto, his red eyes positively glowing with rage. You took away my purpose, you son of a bitch! He screamed curse for a bit longer until he calmed down. He smirked evilly at the blonde. No matter. I'll just tell the council I'm going to revive my clan and use your wives to do it. Then I'll kill your bastard children. He muttered loud enough for Naruto to hear, not a drop of sanity in his tone. Naruto put his devil's leer back on and put something down on the table. It was a small container which was empty, but had a medical label on it. What's that dope? Sasuke asked, actually sounding curious. Oh, not much. Just a little something I slipped into your food. Naruto explained in a cheerful chirp. Sasuke whipped his head back up to gaze at Naruto. What the hell did you do? Took away another dream. You see, this substance does something very specific. It destroys the male ability to reproduce. Now, all your equipment will do in the future is piss. You'll never get it up, or repopulate Konoha with your wretched species. It does this process in an excruciatingly painful way. The music should start any second now. Naruto checked his watch as he sat back and stared impassively at Sasuke's horrified expression. He grinned devilishly as Sasuke began to convulse and scream about his fishing tackle. It lasted for about half an hour before he stopped screaming. Sasuke slumped in the chair, sobbing. Damn, you! He whispered in a voice that was red raw from screaming. HM, 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 HM. MM ha 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 ha. Ah ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Sasuke stared up at Naruto, who was laughing like a stereotypical mad scientist. Oh, I'm not done yet, Sasuke-chan. Nowhere near done. Now I'm going to take the last thing of worth you have. And no, it's not your pathetic life. I'm going to take your precious eyes. Naruto hissed in a tone even more evil than Orochimaru could have mustered. He channeled chakra to form a small blade of fire on his right hand. The shadows from the yellowish-orange blade cowled half of his face in shadows, making his dark-clad form look even more sinister. With his face half hidden, he advanced menacingly on the already screaming Sasuke. Naruto first carved out his right eye, slowly. The blade of fire cauterized the wound as it went. It popped out of its socket, and Naruto cut it off, ignoring Sasuke's screams and pleas for mercy. Sasuke fainted like one of Kankuro's broken puppets. Now this won't do it all, Naruto said in a pouting quality. He preformed a few quick seals, and green chakra covered his hand. He slammed 2 fingers into Sasuke's forehead, and he jolted awake. Sasuke stared up Naruto with his one remaining eye to not see what everyone else saw. 2 compassionate bright blue eyes. No, he saw 2 burning red ones that saw into his soul and passed him judgment to be damned to the 9th level of burning hell. Naruto smirked in a pants-pissing sort of way, and soon extinguished Sasuke's last remaining eye. Sasuke slumped over, crying tears of blood. Pathetic piece of vermin. The blind Uchiha froze when a voice whispered in his ear. Itachi was far more of a challenge than you. He almost killed me. All you killed was a defenseless woman who was weak from childbirth a week before. Not even Itachi would stoop that low. Sasuke sobbed some more, knowing there was nothing he could do. Kill me already. Please, I beg you. Sasuke pleaded, secretly hoping the dobe would grant his wish. No such luck beamed down from heaven. HM, 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 HM. NWA ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Oh no, dear Sasuke-chan. I'm not going to kill you, yet. Nope, you see, when I obliterated Oto by myself, oh I bet that burned your Uchiha pride, eh? I found some pretty arcane and occultist stuff Orochimaru was working on. And one scroll, one very special scroll he had hidden from everyone. A way to send someone's soul, regardless whether their soul is good or evil, to the 9th level of hell. And the best part is, you can send them there alive. Naruto finished in that oh so annoying cheerful chirp. Sasuke's eyes, had he still had them, would have widened in terror. He could hear the telltale swish of someone making hand signs, and he could hear Naruto whispering something. And no! Don't do this, Naruto. I begin for you, please. You're my brother, remember? The noises stopped. My brother is dead. All that is left in front of me is a soulless little imp. Sasuke screamed as he was dragged into something. It would be years before his body died in hell, and then he had the rest of eternity in hell to enjoy its delightful resorts and theme parks of death. End flashback. I showed him Itachi's head, and then I chemically neutered him, left him to stew for a couple of days, and then killed him. Ichigo frowned. Darkness had passed over Naruto's face for a split second that was darker than any being Ichigo would probably ever face. There was far more to the story, but he figured Naruto would never tell, so he decided to try and lighten the mood. What were your other wives like? He asked in a politely curious tone. In a word, quirky. Ichigo chuckled as Rukia decided to ignore the conversation and lead them to the hollow sighting. Anko was, by far, the weirdest, self-proclaimed nymphomaniac and deflower of virgins both male and female. But she was a virgin till I married her. She also liked to drink my blood for some reason. Call it a vampirism streak. Ichigo's eyes widened, and he reddened as he pictured a leather-clad dominatrix Orihime licking up his blood from a shallow cut on his undressed and chained form. He shivered and knocked the image away. She did eventually deflower a girl, though. One of my other wives, Ino. What was she like? In a single word, loud. In public, she was extremely controlling. She was always telling me when to jump and how high. But in private, she loved to be controlled. Naruto said, licking his lips as he remembered Ino's soft whimpers as he made love to her. Sakura, I've described. Hinata was always this timid little thing. Extremely cute. But once I got rid of that stutter and boosted her self-confidence, boy did I regret it. Well, not really. Whips, chains, you name it, she used it. Specifically, she liked having naughty stuff in public. In fact, I'm sure that's how Niji, our son, was conceived. We named him after her cousin who died on a mission. Then there was Tenten. Now she was a surprise. She could throw a knife at 100 feet and hit a moving target dead center. What's even scarier was that she could throw 20 knives and do the same thing. But when I married her, she turned herself into a stereotypical housewife. This surprised everyone. She cooked all the meals and used little tricks to clean up the house even though we all pitched in. I still remember the time she dressed up in a French-maid outfit for the day. I must have run out of bolts from the blue for a year after that. Temari had one hell of a temper. Before the arranged marriage, any guy near her that said anything remotely perverted would be hammered into the ground with her battle fan. But after I married her, the first book she read was the Kama Sutra. I tell ya, if I wasn't a ninja and healed fast, some of those things she did to me would have put me in the hospital. Hanabi was hard to place. She was a regal one, that one. Once I got the arrogant streak out of her, well, mostly out of her, she looked, acted, and was treated by everyone as a queen. And she had a right to be the first clan head in her clan's history that was in the position before 18. And it was liked by both sides of the family. She was a little weird, since she was Hinata's younger sister. But hey, she was an absolute minx in the bedroom. Naruto giggled pervertedly as he finished. Naruto either did not notice, or chose not to notice that Ichigo and Rukia were steadily getting redder and redder in the face as he continued. It was confirmed that he was ignoring it when he said something else. I'll tell you something though. I nearly had a heart attack the first time I came home and found Ino and Anko having naughty stuff. Rukia turned around and tried to slap Naruto, but settled for kicking Ichigo, who had passed out from blood loss. They stopped outside of a park. Naruto frowned when Rukia stopped Ichigo from helping that little boy's spirit, but then saw what she was getting at and let her be. Naruto, however, had to chuckle when Ichigo turned the conversation around on Rukia. And boy was he right. It isn't your duty you think about when you save someone, it's saving that person. Naruto then watched curiously as Ichigo performed Kanso, SP, on the kid's spirit and sent him on to Soul Society. You did that quite beautifully / I'm gone. Naruto watched as Ichigo walked away. Hey Rukia, why is he walking like that? I dunno. Hey Ichigo, you get Ed in the ass or something? Why are you walking funny? Ichigo stiffened in mid-stride. He didn't reply or turn around, but he did walk away normally. Rukia giggled at the antics of the two as Naruto hurried to catch up and find his body, praying Kyuubi hadn't done something weird. Late that night, Sora, Orihime's brother's spirit, was devoured by hollows and subsequently turned into one as well. Naruto was having a conversation with Kyuubi inside the seal, while Yaruchi lay on top of him, purring contentedly after a bout of intense lovemaking. So you kept the fact that you're a girl from me for 2,000 years? Yep. Do you know how stupid that is? It's like a badly written plot on some crappy soap opera, or one of those website stories Jinta was talking about. Wink wink, Kyuubi was hiding in the shadows, not letting herself be seen. So what do you look like? Out walked a tall redhead. Naruto first spotted the long, blood red and swishing tails, but then he saw her figure. She had smooth, flawless, ivory-colored skin that seemed to glow a little in the dark mindscape. Large watermelons jiggled as she walked, and a head of silky red hair that parted for the two large, red, rabbit-like ears. She had long, thigh-length leather boots, and a black miniskirt that barely covered anything, being held up by a small red rope, and a wrap-around top with no shoulders being held closed by a large red sash that sat under her bust, accentuating her already larger watermelons. And a small metal collar was on her neck, with a chain hanging down and disappearing into her cleavage. Naruto then admired her face, angular and beautiful, with whisker marks that were deeper than his own, and tinged blood red. Full, luscious red lips and red eyes completed the picture, with two bangs of red hair on either side of her face to complete the picture. Link in profile. Whoa! Naruto whispered. Kyuubi blushed. Naruto stared, and a hand rubbed his chin in thought. What are you staring at? Kyuubi squeaked in an alto voice that was like honey to Naruto's ears. I'm wondering if it would be too much of a bother to take your boots off. Naruto answered simply. Huh? Kyuubi's eyes widened as Naruto stepped through the bars and latched his mouth onto her neck. Kyuubi whimpered before struggling and trying to break away. Needless to say, she wasn't very successful, as a hand grabbed her rump and began to massage the soft but firm flesh, while another hand began to undo the knot in her sash. He got it undone and stepped back, letting it unravel. Kyuubi, still flushing and dazed from the physical attention, didn't notice she was now topless. Naruto then noticed she had the exact same seal on her stomach he did, but that it was always there. Naruto grinned as Kyuubi became aware of her state of undress and tried to cover her assets. He moved swiftly forward and knocked her hands away, his right hand grabbing her left watermelon and making her gasp. She was about to yell at him when a mouth covered her own, Naruto's left hand holding the back of her head. Kyuubi whimpered into the kiss. Her resolve was failing, and her knees were weakening as a tongue invaded her mouth. She groaned when the arm on her head moved to her waist, pulling her up against her container. When both of Naruto's arms moved around her slim waist, she couldn't help but whimper and drape her arms around his neck. Naruto groaned when Kyuubi finally got into it, and began to trail her lips down his neck. She then moved back up to his ear and whispered, "Damn you!" before nibbling on it. Naruto chuckled and decided a change of scenery was needed. He concentrated, and the sewer shifted into a large, spacious, well-furnished bedroom. Kyuubi admired the new surroundings for a few moments before kissing Naruto, and then turning him around and pushing him onto the bed. Naruto's eyes widened as his clothes disappeared and saw Kyuubi's seductive smirk. Obviously, I'm not the only one who can change things in here. Her clothes were soon gone too. She was positioned on all fours above him, smirking down when he disappeared. She grinned when she felt him position himself behind her. Hurry up, Naruto. It's been at least 5 millennia since I've had a man in me. She could feel his smirk as he entered her slowly. F faster. Naruto didn't comply as he continued to thrust into her slowly. Soon he was sheathed in her entirely. He pulled out again, just as slowly. And when he reached the tip, he pushed back in. The agonizingly slow pace had Kyuubi on the edge, whimpering. And when he pulled out the whole way, she waited excitedly for him to slam back in, but nothing happened. Her eyes widened to the size of plates when she felt the head of his dick touch her rectum. Wait, Naruto. I've never had anything be back there before. Naruto didn't answer, but she felt him shift on the bed. She gasped when something warm and wet flicked across her back entrance. Oh, Cammy! It's his tongue. Her head snapped up, and she screamed silently when her back passage was invaded by a tongue and her vagina was invaded by 2 fingers. She bucked backwards into his face for a few moments before calming down. You think you're ready now? He whispered into her ear. Kyuubi nodded slowly and braced herself. Naruto lined himself up and slipped the head of his black rod into her bum. He felt her inner muscles clamp down on his soaked member for a few moments before relaxing. He grinned as he slid further in. Kyuubi's eyes widened in shock and pleasure as damn near 8 inches of man meat slid into her ass. Now, while Kyuubi had been posing as a guy, not everything had been a lie. She did find females attractive, and had greatly enjoyed watching Naruto pounding into the many different women he had slept with. One example was that Hana girl who he had slept with on a regular basis. Until, of course, his wives finally latched onto him and demanded marriage. This was something Hana did not want. A buddy who didn't mind giving it to her in her ass. She had howled like the dogs her clan was famous for every time he slipped between her cheeks. You're tight, Kyuchan. Kyuubi grinned. She had learned some things from watching Hana. She also blushed when Naruto called her Kyuchan. Naruto pulled out slowly, and then slid back in. Just as he was about to pull out again, Kyuubi clenched her cheeks, earning a strangled groan from her lover. Naruto continued to pump in and out of Kyuubi's ass with her clenching like it was going to end soon. Kyuubi screamed weakly. She clenched her as tighter than ever before around his shaft before releasing. Naruto chuckled softly. Kyuubi's tails, which had been twitching idly during naughty stuff, had flailed all over the place when she came. The fur had swiped across ticklish spots. He thought himself lucky Kyuubi hadn't noticed, but he was wrong. She had, but filed it away for later. She knew he hadn't come yet. Not wanting to disappoint him, she pulled away, turned around, and took his entire length into her mouth. Naruto grunted as she chewed gently, causing him to release his seed down Kyuubi's throat. She gulped it down delightedly before falling back on the bed. "Good night, Kyuchan," Naruto whispered as he molded her right watermelon from her right, which was serving as a pillow. Kyuubi mumbled in her sleep. "Good night, my precious kit." Naruto woke up to find Yoruichi staring down at him. "I figured after what we did there was no way you could possibly want more naughty stuff. But here I wake up to find an erection sticking into me, and you whimper in your sleep. Sorry. You know how I told you I found out Kyuubi was a girl?" Yoruichi nodded. "Well, I made up for all the time we could have had," Naruto explained, a small giggle escaping his lips. "Aw. Okay then. Nighty-night, my little kitsune. Sweet dreams, my fluffy little kitten." Naruto gave Yoruichi one final kiss before he fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Naruto watched with a rather large sweat drop on his head as Rukia read out loud from a book which was apparently in outdated Japanese, because it was very formal and flowery. "Will you shut up already?" Naruto winced and dug a finger in his ear as Ichigo yelled. "You know, for such a stoic SOB, you sure are loud," Naruto grumbled. Ichigo grunted and glared at Rukia, who glared back before explaining why she was reading the book. Naruto just watched, being mildly entertained by the two's arguments. That is, until the screech of a car braking got everyone's attention. Naruto and the other two ran over to see Orihime picking herself up off the ground. "Did you just get hit by that car, Orihime?" Naruto didn't ask any questions. He did what was instinctual to him, check for wounds. "Maybe." That response snapped Naruto out of medic mode to stare at Orihime. "Are you going to be okay?" Orihime nodded and jumped up, her head colliding with Naruto's jaw, sending him sprawling while she apparently didn't notice. "It's just a little bump on my head. Don't worry, I'm fine. I swear." She then made a weird thrusting motion that made her watermelons jiggle, making Ichigo blush slightly. What happened? I felt like I got hit by a wrecking ball." Ichigo glanced down at Naruto, knowing what could happen if you managed to get in the way of Orihime's extremely hard head. "Oh, hello, Naruto. I didn't know you got hit by that car, too," Orihime exclaimed. "Huh? Nah, I was rushing to check on you and I fell down." Orihime smiled at him as he smiled nervously back, wondering how the hell she didn't notice that she knocked him out. Naruto got to his feet and stared as Orihime apparently apologized for being hit by a car. "Rukia?" Naruto had forgotten she was there, and Orihime had just noticed her. "That's right. And just who are you?" Naruto flinched as Rukia went into her normal personality, the cold and aloof bitch one. Not the high school girly girl cover-up one, or the real her that showed when she was embarrassed or emotional. He heard Ichigo whisper fiercely about getting her head out of her ass. Naruto grinned and muttered under his breath, "Yeah, I bet you know all about her ass." He realized he had been caught as Ichigo glared at him with a blush while the two girls conversed. "Well now, it appears that you've been shopping," Rukia said in that sickeningly sweet and fake way she had. Orihime gasped and rushed to pick up her stuff. "My leeks, bananas, butter, and bean jam seem to have made it too." Ichigo blanched, obviously not wanting to even think about what she was going to make while Orihime turned towards Naruto. "You're still coming over for dinner, right? I dunno, Hime. I might have some stuff to do. Plus, I think Ichigo's sisters were expecting me at their house tonight. I'll see what I can do. Don't count on me, though." Orihime nodded. Then Rukia asked about the bruise on her leg. While Orihime guessed it was from the car hitting her, Naruto and Ichigo exchanged curious glances as Rukia examined it further. As Orihime waved goodbye, refusing both offers from Naruto and Ichigo to walk her home, and crossed the street, Ichigo voiced his opinion aloud. "Damn, she needs to be more careful. What she needs is a few more brain cells. She's nice and a great girl, but I don't think anyone is home, even though the lights are on." Ichigo chuckled while Rukia stared off the way Orihime had gone. Naruto grimaced as Ichigo later explained about Orihime's brother. "Hey, where are you going?" It was only then Naruto noticed that Rukia was walking away. Home? Where's that? Do you really want to know? Guess not. Then don't ask me. Ichigo glared at Rukia's retreating back until Naruto slapped him upside the head. What the hell is wrong with you? He yelled. What? Ichigo bellowed back. Why didn't you walk her home so she could invite you in for some coffee? Naruto demanded. I don't like coffee. Ichigo replied bluntly. Naruto smacked his head and shook it. Honestly, his orange-headed buddy was almost as dense as he used to be sometimes. Idiot! I meant naughty stuff. Naruto explained in a shout. Ichigo reddened. What the? Why the hell would I want to have naughty stuff with her? He yelled. Because you're totally into her, whether you like it or not. Naruto hollered. So what? Ichigo shot back. Ichigo's eyes widened when he realized what he had said. Naruto roared with laughter and grinned cheekily at his orange-haired friend. Told you, dude. So make a move at least once before she goes back where she came from. Naruto suggested, elbowing Ichigo. Ichigo merely glared and stalked off, grumbling about no good friends who don't back him up. Naruto chuckled to himself. He was about to head home when he got a feeling he should just wander the neighborhood because something was going to happen. Ichigo sat on his bed, dismissing Yuzu's problems when he heard a rustle of cloth. He looked up to see Naruto, perched on his window, still smiling at him. He grunted and turned back to his book, waiting for Naruto to state his purpose. He heard a phone ring. He looked up at Naruto, who was staring straight ahead. They both talked simultaneously. Why do you have a phone in your closet / you gonna answer that? They both looked towards the closet when the door slammed open and Rukia appeared shouting. Hey Ichigo! Both boys cried out in surprise simultaneously. Ichigo flailed on his bed, while Naruto tumbled out the window. Naruto groaned outside the window, coming back to the world as Ichigo was knocked from his body, and then proceeded to try and kill the hollow that had arrived. Naruto climbed back up and into the house just as Ichigo said the hollow was Orihime's brother. Naruto glared at the floor when Rukia went on to explain the horrible truth. But when Ichigo tried to resist the truth, Naruto decided to participate. She's right. Would you rather kill one hollow that was a good man in the past, or let it live to hunt down and kill or devour other good and innocent people? It's the way the world works, man. Sacrifice the few to save the many, all for the greater good. I know you want to save everyone, and so do I, but in this situation, in this world, we have to face the facts. That's not some man out there who's been brainwashed and can be saved, or has been drugged, or is desperate for money and is committing a crime. It's a monster that was once a man. Pure and simple. Rukia stared, more than slightly amazed that someone so new to being a Shinigami would understand so well. But then she remembered how old he was, and with age comes wisdom. Even if he never shows it. While this was happening, the hollow who was once Sora retreated to the hollow realm to recover, and his mask rebuilt itself after being damaged. In the real world, Tatsuki was upset that Naruto was walking with Rukia, but covered herself by shouting about Ichigo, and then trying to snap Orihime out of another one of her vivid daydreams. Then they began to hear strange noises. I don't get it, why would Orihime's brother attack us? Not us, you. I'm guessing there's a more powerful hollow behind this that wants to consume your spirit energy. It probably has several hollows doing its bidding, and knows where you are right now. It would explain why Orihime's brother has come to attack you. Naruto decided to pitch in. So what? There's like a big boss hollow or something, though I wouldn't put it that way, yes? That's it up. Ichigo was worrying about hollows striking his family, while Rukia and Naruto talked. I am not sure I can kill him. Naruto looked at Ichigo sympathetically. Ichigo, you have to. You saw the pain he was in, you gotta set him free. I'll tag along, but this is your battle. Ichigo nodded, and was about to leave, when Rukia hit Naruto with her glove, ejecting him from his body. They picked up the pace and headed out the window, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, while Rukia was carried on his back. Naruto was hot on the substitute Shinigami's heels. By then, Orihime had been knocked out, and Tatsuki had been thrown around the room by the invisible to them at least hollow. Tatsuki could see a vague shape every now and then, but Orihime, who was still connected to her body by the chain of fate, could see it clearly and was scared stiff. Tatsuki was flung across the room and knocked out cold. Orihime tried to defend Tatsuki from the hollow as the black-haired fighter passed out. Orihime questioned the hollow, who seemed to know her. It tried to explain the truth, but when Orihime couldn't understand, it lashed out at her. Orihime flinched, but when no blow came, looked up to see Ichigo stopping the monster with a massive sword. It fled temporarily. Thank you for saving me, Ichigo. Ichigo looked at Orihime, very alarmed. Then he saw what had happened, but before he could say anything, the hollow came back. It grabbed Orihime and knocked him outside. Naruto looked up as Ichigo stood on air. He was distracted when he heard Rukia's phone ring. "What's wrong?" he asked. "More hollows," she told him. "Damn it! Ichigo!" Ichigo looked down at his yelling blonde friend. "You save Orihime! I got some more hollows to take care of. Good luck, man. Don't let me down." After getting information from Rukia, he was gone. Ichigo got knocked out by the hollow's snake-like tail. While Ichigo was awoken by Rukia, Orihime learned the terrible truth that the monster attacking her used to be her brother. "You're lying! My brother was a very gentle person. He would never do these things," she protested. "I was so lonely. You were forgetting about me, dear Amuto, a little more each day." He then went on to explain how he had watched Orihime slowly forget to pray for his soul, which made him feel lonelier and lonelier every day, and how Tatsuki entered her life and took her mind away from him, and how when she entered high school she stopped the prayers. The hollow moved off to attack Ichigo. But when Orihime shouted at him to stop, he attacked her, grabbing her in his giant hands and squeezing her. But as if Kami himself was listening to Orihime's prayers. "Leave her alone, you freak!" shouted Ichigo as he drove his blade into the hollow's tail again and again, making it drop Orihime and scream in pain. It went after her again, but Ichigo was too quick for it. He moved in front of her and cutting off its hand. It backed away, the wound spurting huge amounts of black blood that completely disappeared afterwards. "Let me tell you something, Captain Overbite," said Ichigo as he turned to face the hollow. "Let me tell you why older brothers are born first. It's so they can look after their little brothers and sisters, not threaten to kill them. Even a dead man doesn't ever have the right to say that." Now he sounded truly pissed off. The hollow spoke. "You don't know what you're talking about. Orihime is mine. I raised her when our parents left us. She's more like a daughter than a sister to me. Orihime, come with me now, back to when it was just you and me, happy together," it said, extending its remaining hand. "If you come, I won't hurt these others. Don't. It's a trick," Rukia warned her. The hollow glared at Rukia, but then spotted the hairpin Orihime was wearing. He remembered how she didn't want to wear it when he bought it for her, since it was childish. But she was now wearing it as a way to remember him every day. The hollow convulsed and screamed before shouting, "Orihime is mine!" and attacking, only to be blocked by Ichigo. "Orihime doesn't belong to anyone, and least of all to you," he shouted before throwing it back outside. He leapt at it, but before he could cut off its head, it spat a liquid onto his hands that burned and made him drop his Zanpakuto. The hollow charged Ichigo, ready to devour his soul, but Orihime jumped in the way, embracing the hollow's oversized head. That action stunned both Ichigo and the thing that used to be her brother. When the hollow asked her why, Orihime went on to explain how he was always protecting her, even when she never asked him to, even when he was dead, and that was how she got the weird bruise. He had pulled her out of the way of that car. "I thought if you saw I was happy, why you could pass on and not in need to watch over me anymore. I never dreamed it would make you so sad and lonely." Ichigo and Rukia watched in shock as Orihime tearfully talked to her brother. She fainted a few seconds later. The hollow began to scream as its face flickered between that of a hollow and that of Sora. Rukia explained to the confused Ichigo that what was left of Sora that was human was fighting, and that he must have been forcefully changed into a hollow by a powerful hollow who wanted Ichigo's soul. "And since you knew this soul in life, you hesitated, which is what the powerful hollow probably wants. Now he's fighting the hollow inside of him for his sister's sake." The hollow began to scream Orihime's name over and over again. The mask abruptly shattered, leaving only Sora's face behind. Rukia began to heal Orihime's wounds while Ichigo talked with Sora. "You gave her that hairpin, didn't you?" he asked, after spotting what Sora was staring at. He went on to confirm Sora's thoughts about her wearing it to remember him by. Naruto arrived back at the scene, seeing a hollow with a human face holding Ichigo's Zanpakuto to its face, and Rukia explaining that Shinigami don't kill hollows. They exorcise them, allowing them to pass on. Naruto watched as Orihime bid a tearful and meaningful goodbye to her brother. He sighed, trying to hold back a tear. The scene was extremely touching. He heard Kyuubi crying inside his mind. "You okay, Kyu-chan?" "Shut up! I'm not crying, damn it!" He shook his head and watched as the hollow ended its life, allowing itself to pass on. He watched as Orihime cried on Rukia's shoulder, and Ichigo picked up his sword, looking depressed. He jumped down and clapped Ichigo on the shoulder. "Well, that ended well, I think. There were 3 more halfway across town, hanging out in a cemetery, obviously trolling for a snack. They won't be bothering anyone anymore, And it's nice to know we don't kill them, but perform a nastier version of Kanso. Ichigo nodded, and they helped Rukia clear up the mess. She pulled something out of her pocket and used it to knock out Orihime. What's that thing? Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. It's a memory replacement device. I wiped out tonight's events and gave her a new one. And unfortunately, there is no way to predict what her memory will be replaced by. So tomorrow, we'll find out what she thinks happened tonight. Ichigo and Naruto nodded. Naruto got a sly smile on his face as he imagined Orihime spouting off about having naughty stuff with Ichigo, or something of that nature. The next day, Orihime was explaining to her group of girls about how a sumo wrestler with a gun blasted a hole in her apartment wall. While Naruto, Rukia, and Ichigo stared dumbfounded by her active imagination, Naruto smiled however when Ichigo began to talk about his work as a Shinigami. Alright, I'll help you for now as a Shinigami. Good, I'm counting on you. Rukia shook his hand. Unfortunately for them, the eternal pranking emperor was behind them. He shoved Rukia hard, making her scream and fall into Ichigo, who fell as well under the unexpected weight. Naruto laughed as he backed away, ready to bolt when necessary, and saw everyone else was paying attention to the two on the ground. Ichigo opened his eyes after the tumble was over. He heard a feminine muffled groan and frowned. Why can I feel someone else groan? He wondered frantically. Rukia groaned and opened her eyes. She was met with the sight of Ichigo, whose eyes were inches from their own. Both of them turned dark red, but for different reasons. Ichigo blushed because Rukia's trim body was situated between his slightly spread legs. Rukia turned red when she felt something pressing into her leg in the general vicinity of Ichigo's growing goodies. As they turned their heads, both of them were met with resistance. Then it dawned on them. They were kissing. They sprang apart, blushing heavily and spluttering. They turned on Naruto, who was laughing hard. The blonde froze at seeing and feeling two death glares. He chuckled nervously before bolting, screaming his head off as Ichigo and Rukia pelted after him. The group of girls watched, astonished and dumbfounded at the antics. And so did the guys, save Kigo, who was grumbling about ladies' men, and Chad, who was chuckling. I like Naruto's sense of humor, and how he picks on Ichigo. It's funnier than a comedy show. The other two boys stared at Chad, astonished, but were dragged from their surprise by a twin shout of, Gotcha! I.e. I'm sorry. It was just a joke, you know. Ha ha, anyway you guys liked it. Right. No reply was heard, except when Naruto started screaming in pain. Later, Rukia would try to subtly use her memory replacement device on Kigo to see how it would work. Unfortunately for her, it backfired, as Kigo later announced to the whole class that while he and Naruto were eating lunch and chatting about girls, they saw Ichigo and Rukia making out under a tree. While those that had been there put it down to Kigo being Kigo, the rest of the class had given them weird looks, but had dismissed it. Or would have, had Naruto, whose bruises had mysteriously disappeared, not backed up the story. Ichigo groaned as the class stared. I hate my life, he grumbled, trying to tear out a few locks of his hair. Naruto grinned to himself in the mirror. Urahara had finally gotten around to getting him a bucket hat. It went well with his current white and black outfit. He looked over his shoulder at the sleeping Yaruchi and a brown-haired female teenager who had to be about 18. Urahara had commented the other day that Yaruchi was apparently experimenting to see if Jigai could get pregnant. He had been smacked through a wall for his troubles. Although Naruto had to admit, they were acting like a pair of teenagers when it came to naughty stuff. Last night, it had been a little different though. Yaruchi sat on Naruto's kitchen counter sweaty and flushed. Why don't we try something different for Naruto? Alright, I'll go buy a Karma Sutra. Yaruchi smirked and shook her head. No, I want you. She paused for effect, placing a hand on his bare chest with a playful smirk on her lips. To go out and bring back another woman. Naruto's jaw hit the floor. He certainly hadn't expected that. W-wa? He stuttered in surprise. Yeah, okay. Yaruchi watched him leave with a pleased smile. This was going to be fun. End flashback. If he had to be honest with himself, he had to say that he didn't really care about the extra chore he had to perform last night. It had been fun, fulfilling, relaxing, and good exercise. He looked over his shoulder as Yaruchi stretched out, and his eyes shined when he heard her give off a little whine, protesting against his missing warmth. The second girl simply slept on. Yaruchi's eyes fluttered open, and she spotted him still in the room. She gave him one of those saucy grins of hers she knew he loved so much. Naruto was everything she had ever wanted in a man. Brave, strong, and good in the bedroom. She had been greatly disliked by most of her clan growing up, her mother being the only exception. The elder Shahuin woman had practically given birth to a clone of herself. They were so alike in personality. A woman who was wild and rebellious in a clan that was generally calm, peaceful, and unassuming. Due to this, Yuruchi had not been able to find a man that fit exactly what she was searching for until now. A powerful and strong-willed warrior, who was also kind and caring and compassionate, she had expected to never find the man she was looking for. A man of opposites. Caring and compassionate to all, yet ruthless and utterly unforgiving to those who truly could not be redeemed, while playful and serious when appropriate. Dominating yet submissive when it called for it. She couldn't help but smirk at that last thought. Naruto could utterly dominate her in all things, even in a fight, if it truly came down to it. Yet, when she wanted him to submit, he would simply submit, because that's what she wanted. The one thing she had always looked for but never found in any of her naughty stuffule partners was the ability to keep up with her. Naruto had blown her out of the water with that one. He could hurt till she passed out. He'd done so on one occasion when she'd mocked him about it. She couldn't find the will in her to regret it. There, however, was one quality that the Catwoman had never looked for but found in Naruto that made her believe she could fall in love with him. He approached everything with an almost childlike wonder. It didn't matter if he'd done it before, everything was fun and exciting to him. This added a whole new aspect to her naughty stuff life with the world traveler. She knew as a Shinigami who could live for thousands of years that naughty stuff lives were non-existent among older couples, as there was nothing new they could do. Naruto was different. Everything, even if they had done the same before, he approached with a passion, interest, and dedication as if it were their first time. Yuruchi suddenly realized one thing above all else. Even if she didn't love him, she knew that she would never have nor ever want another lover than the blonde-haired fox. Naruto cocked his head to the side as Yuruchi spaced out. It was odd for her. He shook his head to help clear his thoughts. He had to get to school. I gotta go, Yuruchi. I'll see you later. He shot a look at the second, still sleeping woman. Say thanks to Mizuho for me for the great night. Yuruchi sighed with a bit of frustration and amusement. Kasuke wants some help with the newest crackpot scheme he came up with later, so I don't know when I'll be back. Naruto mumbled in thought. Okay, I'll see you whenever then. He pouted a bit before it brightened in a mischievous grin. Have fun. Ja. Naruto left and began to leisurely stroll towards school. While walking, he decided to devote some serious brain power and time to some questions that had been bugging him for a while now. Like, what did that world-traveling jutsu really do, and why didn't he have as much Ryatsu as he had Churka? Also, why the hell did Kyuubi still have Churka? He immediately put his body on autopilot while he shot these questions at the only person he figured would know. Kyuubi was a bit startled by these questions. She herself had completely forgotten to explain everything in detail when she should have. She cleared her throat. She was going to be talking for a while. Well, the simple reason as to why I have chakra is because, unlike you, I have something in common with this world. Hell, I have something in common with all worlds in existence. And that would be, hell is the same everywhere. The kitsune answered simply. Naruto nodded. That made sense, but something was still nagging at him. What about soul society? Isn't that heaven? Not really. The Kyuubi disagreed. It's not true heaven. My guess would be that once something truly dies in this world, it gets sent to heaven. He nodded in understanding. Okay, I understand now. But what about Ryatsu? It's simple, really. Chakra is the essence of life. Ryatsu the essence of death, or your spirit. It's so completely different that your control is shot to hell. The reason you have a lot less than you think you should have is simple. She gave him a smirk. Try moving it about. Naruto did, and muttered to himself as he worked. It's harder to move. Thicker almost. Thicker means more potent, of course, dot. He yelled in triumph. Ryatsu has got to be at least 20 times more potent than chakra. So if I have all my chakra compressed into 1/20th of what it used to be, I get my current level. Yet with your chakra being converted to Ryatsu, I should grow at an exponential rate like I used to. I knew you could figure it out, Naruto-kun. She praised him. Finally, the world transfer jutsu was something we both cooked up, remember? It was a bastardized version of the summoning technique for both demons and the Shinigami with my own special twist. She paused a little to let it sink in. That twist is the technique demons use to move from hell to a world and back again, though this is from world to world. Or universe to universe if you prefer. Oh, okay. I guess that explains everything. If I come across any more questions, I'll be sure to ask you. Naruto muttered with a sense of everything finally clicking into place. No problem. Oh, you're at school already. The Kyuubi's words caused him to return to the world. He nodded as he stopped spacing out. Little did he know that today would be another really weird day. Naruto arrived a little late to lunch, just in time to see Rukia staring bewildered at a juice carton and Chad explaining why he was bandaged up. Naruto stared. He had been damn lucky to catch himself from mentioning Yuruchi when the bird started to talk. This was strange. He could tell right away it wasn't a Shinigami or a hollow. He decided to question Rukia, the more knowledgeable person on Shinigami matters. Yoruichi would probably shunt the question to Urahara, who would experiment on the bird. He overheard Rukia answering both his and Ichigo's unasked questions. He sat down and stared at the bird for a few seconds before Kigo asked a question. So Naruto, when you next going to pull a prank? Rukia and Ichigo stiffened at Naruto's sadistic grin. Well, I got an idea. It'll take some sleight of hand and a cool magic trick, but I reckon I could do it. Hey Ichigo, Ichigo tensed. When I turn back up and you'll know it's me, introduce me as your cousin who just transferred in. Ichigo nodded slowly, still having no idea what was going on. Naruto leapt to his feet and ambled out of sight. A few minutes later Orihime, Tatsuki, Chizuru, and the rest of the girls' group arrived on the roof. They settled down into a conversation when someone else turned up on the roof. Ichigo's jaw hit the floor. No way, this was who he thought it was. Long legs, voluptuous body, heart-shaped face. Full lips, deep soulful blue eyes, and silky blonde hair. The new and beautiful girl walked up to the group and smiled sweetly at them. Hello, I'm Naruto, she said in an almost musical voice. Ichigo swallowed and found his voice. The girls had assumed that the reason the boys were frozen was because she was pretty. Chizuru, a loud and proud lesbian, was drooling at the sight of the girl. She's my cousin. Everyone looked at him when he said it, and Chad and Kigo got in on the act. Chad nodded as if he just confirmed something. I remember you said she was transferring here. Kigo approached her, and in his usual loud voice exclaimed, You're so beautiful, will you go out with me? Naruto smiled and blushed lightly, and in a quiet voice said, I'm sorry, I don't like guys. Chizuru gasped and Kigo turned away crying. Ichigo wasn't sure if Kigo realized what was going on until he saw the sly smile on his lecherous friend's face. Chizuru sidled up next to Naruto. Are you a lesbian? Naruto nodded shyly. Chizuru moved and kissed her full on the lips. The entire group's eyes widened in shock as Chizuru bowled this new girl over in a full and passionate lip lock. She pulled back, panting and blushing. I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me. It's okay. Everything froze over. Naruto's voice was now deep and masculine and frighteningly familiar. Poof! The sudden explosion of smoke sent Chizuru reeling backwards. The smoke cleared, revealing Naruto, with a self-satisfied smile on his face. He grinned widely. You're a pretty good kisser, Chizuru. The boys doubled over in laughter while Rukia had trouble suppressing a giggle. They didn't know how he did it, but he had. Chizuru's eyes widened in horror. Her face went white as a sheet before she passed out. Naruto roared with laughter as the girls recovered from their shock and giggled. How did you do that, Naruto? Magic. Orihime gasped, then squealed like a little girl before asking Naruto to perform other magic tricks. He did so, but only minor sleight of hand, like a flower out of his sleeve or something else. Someone else arrived on the roof. Kigo, you forgot your lunch. Oh, thanks, Mizuho. Naruto stiffened. This time Ichigo was the only one to notice that Naruto's face had drained of color as he slowly turned and faced Kigo's sister. He made a choking sound that drew everyone's attention. Ichigo really knew something was up when Mizuho gasped and blushed crimson. Kigo frowned. His friend Naruto and his sister were acting kind of strange. The ever-present perverted part of his brain, which took up twice as much brain power as in a usual man, which meant a total of 50% of his total brain power, was dedicated to perverseness. That large part of his brain made a connection, then it clicked. All eyes turned to Kigo as he stammered. Why you slept with my sister? Jaws dropped and Naruto seemed to shrink under scrutiny. Tatsuki stood up, eyes blazing. She advanced on the cowering Naruto. I thought you said you had a girlfriend? Mizuho spoke finally, ignoring her shocked brother. Hey, leave him alone, it was his girlfriend's idea. Jaws that had just been picked up hit the floor again. Tatsuki's rage burned brighter. You mean to say your girlfriend told you to go out, pick up a random girl, and sleep with her, and it just happened to be Kigo's older sister? Naruto cringed. Well, not exactly. Kigo, who was still recovering from the fact a friend of his had slept with his sister, who had said she was spending the night at a friend's, didn't care that Naruto's girlfriend was involved. That was until he picked up the not exactly. He heard it, deciphered it, and it registered. Ichigo watched in amusement as Naruto was just about to be torn apart by an irate Tatsuki. The girl just wouldn't admit she was attracted to him. Hell, even he could see that. His amusement stopped when Kigo gave a shrill scream, blushing beet red, and fainted. What's wrong with him now? Chad coughed as if clearing his throat, and ignored the frantic and threatening gestures Naruto was making in his direction. The gestures became more complicated until Chad got the impression that Naruto was going to shove something very long and very big where it wasn't supposed to go. I believe Kigo realized that not only did Naruto sleep with Mizuho, But so did his girlfriend. Mizuho gasped and passed out next to her brother. The girls were blushing heavily and staring at nothing. Orihime was eating something, happily oblivious to what's going on around her. Tatsuki ignoring and suppressing her blush at the thought of being with Naruto, and another woman turned to find he was gone. A dust cloud vaguely resembling him in shape, the only sign he had ever even been there. Rukia appeared to be caught between amusement at Ichigo's obvious discomfort and a mild amount of disgust at Naruto's apparent naughty stuffual habits. She had met people as old or older than the blonde, but they weren't that lecherous. Her amusement and disgust faded away to embarrassment when she caught a furtive glance by a blushing Ichigo to her, then to Orihime. She blushed and looked away. It was all Naruto's fault. If he didn't keep suggesting that something was going on between her and Ichigo, she wouldn't find herself so uncomfortable when she knew he was changing in his room. It was his fault when she walked in on him half undressed and had drooled. Yep, totally Naruto's fault. Naruto was walking with Ichigo to his house. He almost never had dinner during a school day at his apartment. It was generally at Ichigo's or Orihime place. He was just as confused as Ichigo when Karen rushed past in an awful hurry. Yuzu walked up to them carrying a box full of items. "Welcome home, Ichigo. Hello, Naruto." Naruto waved while Ichigo spoke up. "So what's got you both so worked up?" "There was an accident. A big car wrecked down at the corner." Naruto and Ichigo shared a look before hearing Isshin shouting into a phone. He was apparently trying to get hospital beds for the injured, as his small clinic couldn't handle the influx. Hey Dad." Isshin swore under his breath, ignoring Ichigo. "So, is there anything I can do?" "No, just assume the fetal position and stay out of the way." Ichigo's face faltered, while Naruto held in a chuckle. Ichigo settled into a crouch in an out-of-the-way corner. Naruto ambled over to him. "Hey, wanna play cards?" A few minutes later, Ichigo was swearing like a sailor. He wished he hadn't bet his allowance in this game. Naruto was grinning like a Cheshire cat as he raked in the money. "Hey Dad, we got this one last patient that needs treatment." It was Yuzu. They heard Isshin mutter something about the guy's size. "Ichigo, Naruto, come here and get to work." They were on their feet in a second and rounded the corner the next. Both froze at the sight that greeted them, a badly hurt Chad. Naruto rushed over, and in a feat that made everyone but Ichigo's jaw drop, lifted Chad with a single hand and deposited him on an empty bed. As Isshin checked him over, Naruto and Ichigo watched the bird and Chad alternatively. Karen was also staring at the bird. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when Chad tried to leave and fainted from blood loss. A few minutes later, Naruto sat on Ichigo's windowsill, having pretended to leave to Ichigo's family already, while Rukia discussed what she had felt. "The bird isn't evil and is most likely harmless, but the burn on Chad's back reeks of hollow." The trio talked a little more until Naruto realized everything was over and he left. Rukia and Ichigo settled down in the closet and bed respectively. Naruto, once he was sure they were asleep, crept back in by the window. He first pulled down Ichigo's bed sheet. Unfortunately, Ichigo was a light sleeper. "Why?" Naruto chopped him on the neck, knocking him out. Naruto had an easier time with Rukia. He opened the closer and lifted her small form out, then with a slight difficulty in getting her into the right position set her down on Ichigo's chest. Naruto watched in amusement as she murmured, then snuggled deeper into the replacement Shinigami's chest. Ichigo, by pure instinct and reflex, wrapped an arm around her in his unconscious state. Naruto lifted the blanket and draped it over the two of them. He giggled quietly as he took out a camera and snapped off a couple of shots. He snickered in the silence as he left. He was good? Hell, he was the best. Later that night, Ichigo woke up. He dismissed the shadow that hit him as a weird dream and attributed the ache in his neck to sleeping awkwardly, and he went back to sleep. He never noticed the light weight on his chest. Naruto snuck back into Ichigo's room just before dawn. They were still asleep, but the position was more provocative. Rukia had turned over in her sleep. She was now lying with her back on Ichigo's chest. Her head, however, was buried in the orange-haired boy's neck. Ichigo's hand was under her shirt, dangerously close to her watermelons. Naruto grinned. He had gotten the pictures from last night printed, then borrowed a Polaroid camera from Urahara so he could print off the black pictures faster. Naruto raised the camera and took a single shot. The flash woke up Rukia. Rukia woke up groggily. Her bed was a lot warmer than usual, and it was also a lot harder. She sighed and realized her lips were pressed against the wall. She frowned and licked her lips. Since when did walls sweat and taste faintly of strawberries? She pursed her lips again and touched the wall. Since when did they have pulses too? Her eyes widened in horror as she realized what exactly her lips were pressed against. She sat up with a shriek. She then noticed she was in Ichigo's bed sitting on him. She shrieked again. Thankfully neither were loud enough to go further than the room. Something was different. She growled when she spotted Naruto leaning against the wall, tears of mirth streaming down his face as he watched the two of them. Ichigo was slowly awakening by then. Rukia jumped off him and charged. Naruto raised a hand, a small object grasped in it. Rukia stopped growing pale. Naruto had a picture of her sleeping on top of Ichigo. Ichigo awoke. Rukia was standing with a horrified look on her face at something Naruto was holding. What? He got a good look at the picture. He jumped out of bed blushing crimson from anger more than anything. Naruto shook his finger at them. You attack me, or rip this one up, the whole school will see the others. Ichigo fell to his knees, horror and embarrassment and resignation gripping his heart and soul. Naruto had gotten him, had gotten both of them. Rukia smiled sweetly. Naruto, could you please give all the pictures to me? I swear I won't hurt you, and I'll be nicer from now on. Naruto looked thoughtful. Nah, Rukia bristled. Tell you what? Both the embarrassed prank victims were suddenly attentive. You two kiss right here right now, and I'll give you one of the photos. And not some pansy-ass peck either, a real honest-to-God kiss between, oh let's say, lovers. Ichigo was about to shout at him when Rukia's shoulders slumped. No way. She turned to Ichigo, was a desperate look in her eyes. He sighed. Fine. Naruto smirked. Rukia and Ichigo's lips met. Rukia hesitantly deepened the kiss, and Ichigo wrapped his arms around her. Rukia's mind was racing. She hadn't wanted to do this, so why was her heart racing or her cheeks flushing? Why did she want to whimper? Flash. Their eyes widened in horror as they tore apart. Naruto smiled at them cheerfully and tossed them a sedate photo of Rukia merely lying on Ichigo's chest. Rukia tore it up and glared at Naruto, who smiled knowingly. You will get the images back, I promise. Ichigo relaxed. Naruto never broke a promise that he knew. You'll just have to do some stuff first. Both paled. Like what? Asked a tentative Rukia. One of you, only one, admits you like the other in front of the group. I'll choose who later and tell you as soon as the mission is accomplished. You get one photo. Don't worry, I'll set it up. With a cheery wave, he leaped out the window. He owns us, doesn't he? Yes, he does, Ichigo. Yes, he does. Ichigo headed down to the kitchen and saw Yuzu preparing breakfast. So is Karen up yet? She didn't want to eat. She said she's not feeling so good. I'm worried. Really? Karen's sick? That's not like her. Suddenly, a door opened. Ichigo. It was his dad. Bad news. Chad's gone. He's disappeared from his room. Ichigo gravely nodded and took off as fast as he could. Ichigo was running, trying to find Chad. Ichigo. It was Rukia, followed by Naruto in Shinigami form. Rukia. So you got any idea about where he might be? Asked Rukia. Naruto stayed silent, slightly worried himself. No, you got any info? Not yet. There's no news from Soul Society about a hollow, and I'm not sensing anything either. She quickly pulled out her sketchbook. When hollows aren't chasing holes, they can hide themselves between this world and the Soul Society. When a hollow is located between those two worlds, we cannot detect it. What that means is until it shows up to attack Chad. You understand? You got it? Naruto and Ichigo looked at each other and spoke in unison. We think we can understand those kindergarten drawings of yours. Rukia's face darkened and her eyebrow twitched. She shoved the book into Ichigo's gut and kicked Naruto in the shin. Naruto hopped on one foot as Ichigo spoke. I think we got it. A hollow is targeting Chad to swallow up his soul. If we wait for it to show up and attack him, it will be too late. Gotta think? He paused, then smirked. I got an idea. We'll use Chad's bird friend. Can we use that bird to help detect the presence of a hollow? No, that's impossible. Ichigo huffed and closed his eyes. His face screwed up as he concentrated. Ichigo began to glow. Naruto looked at him, smiling, slightly impressed. Ichigo, what's the sensation I'm feeling? Asked Rukia. He didn't answer her. He's trying to sense the soul in that bird. Even I can't sense a soul that weak at this distance, and that human soul is partially eclipsed by the bird's soul. To home in on it from so far away. She left the sentence unfinished. Naruto whistled and rocked on his heels, waiting for Ichigo to finish. Suddenly, Ichigo grabbed a white cloth that had appeared out of thin air. Wow, obviously Rukia was impressed. He ran off. He saw spirit ribbons, rays of spirit energy, but only a high-level soul reaper can see those. They quickly followed him. After about a minute of following Ichigo, Chad appeared up ahead. He ignored Ichigo's shout and ran off. Ichigo! Ichigo turned and gasped that it was Karen, and she looked ill. Karen, what are you doing here? You look really sick. She fell over. Ichigo quickly ran up to her. Ichigo, you need to get Karen home safe. All eyes turned to Rukia. We'll handle them. What, are you kidding me? I can't just leave you. Just do as I say. I know what would happen if we leave her here. You'd be worrying about her when you fight the hollow. And that cannot happen here no matter what. Her phone beeped. She pulled it out and grimaced. Naruto, 2 hollows to the west, get moving. He nodded and disappeared. Now go on, get moving, get her home, and get back here quick now that Naruto's gone. Rukia, I hope you know that right now you don't have the strength to fight a hollow by yourself. Please don't risk yourself for my sake. Don't be stupid, a veteran Soul Reaper never takes any unnecessary chances with a hollow. She looked back at him with a small smile on her face. Now go. Without another word, she continued to follow Chad. Ichigo picked up Karen and got moving. Naruto's face twisted into an expression no one on this world had seen. A feral snarl, he was hunting. His eyes slowly shifted over to red. He had found that, after his first century of existence, his love of battle had grown to epic proportions. He loved big odds. The more opponents against him, the better. If they were powerful, it was fantastic. He had gained a measure of bloodlust. He didn't always like to kill, but when his battle rage was upon him, he would slaughter his enemy without mercy. He drew both swords and jumped off a roof. He flew high and far due to the power of his jump. He fell exactly where he wanted to be, right on top of the first hollow. His impact with its back knocked it off balance, sending it tumbling. He grinned at the other shocked hollow and leapt towards it. The hollow snarled and dodged, but let loose a powerful howl as 2 of its 4 limbs were severed. The hollow was shaped like an ape. It died with a scream as Naruto stabbed its mask. The other, a hollow wolf, snarled and charged his back. Naruto spun, and with a single slash killed it. Naruto sheathed his swords and smiled. A job well done. He took a single step before freezing. His hands twitched towards his blades before leaping aside as the ground exploded. He rolled to his feet and grinned. A new hollow. The grin faded when 10 more arrived. They chuckled. We got you, little Shinigami, time to feed. They charged with a roar. Naruto drew his swords and leapt forward with a feral snarl. His sword flashed and a hollow died. Little did he know a Shinigami was watching him with open curiosity. The strange blonde could help his plans or hinder them. Another hollow died, and the blonde was surrounded. He sighed. He had hoped the boy would do a lot better than this. Naruto snarled, his eyes glowed blood red, and his nails formed into claws. With a roar, the world died. Aizen barely kept his jaw from dropping in surprise. With an inhuman roar, a dome of red energy sprang into life, obliterating all it touched. 1 hollow survived, but it howled in pain as half its body was gone. The dome faded and revealed a Naruto who looked as fresh as he was before the fight. He killed the hollow and ran off the way he came. Aizen sensed the boy was holding back a hell of a lot. The boy's reflexes were as quick as lightning, but he ran at a speed most Shinigami could easily match. Aizen smirked and headed back to Soul Society. He'd have to find out how to corrupt the blonde. How little he knew. Naruto shivered but dismissed it at having had to use Kyuubi's chakra after so long. Especially that attack. Controlling it was extremely hard. It was designed to wipe out a much larger area. He leapt and ran towards where he could sense something going on. He smirked to himself as he performed acrobatics, bouncing, twirling, swinging off all manner of objects. Lampposts, buildings, cars, etc. He was wired after that fight. God, that was a pathetic fight. I really need an all-out brawl against someone strong. He arrived soon after seeing Ichigo, Chad, and Rukia standing around the bird in its cage. He landed just as Rukia examined the cage. Ichigo nodded at him and turned to Rukia. What's wrong? I'm afraid there is nothing I can do. His chain of fate has been severed. There's no sign of it. Without it, I can't return him to his body. The bird spoke. Oh no. Chad murmured the bird's name. Rukia smiled. Don't be sad. The Soul Society is a wonderful place. It's very peaceful. You'll be happy there. You'll never be hungry, and you'll never grow old. In fact, it's a much better place to live than this world. Naruto held in a snort. He would believe that when he saw it. Ichigo leaned down. So now you're suddenly an expert on life in this world. What? Ichigo interrupted her. Anyway, you're missing the point here. When you cross over, you'll finally be reunited with your mother. We may not be able to bring her back to life, but she is on the other side waiting for you. And this time it's really true. The bird turned to Chad. Sato-san, thank you for everything you did for me. You carried me everywhere in your arms, and you kept me safe. You were even brave enough to face a terrible monster and protect me from it. Don't mention it. I guess it's time to go now. I don't know what else to say except thank you, all of you. A small ethereal boy appeared behind the bird. Chad spoke. When I die and pass over, would it be all right with you if I carried you around again? The kid nodded and gave a beaming smile. Ichigo gave the kid a reassuring smile. Let's perform the kanso. A few days later, Naruto stared as Rukia entered Urahara's shop. She was looking for something specific. He was here for a completely different reason. His Zanpakuto had been giving him an odd feeling recently, and he didn't feel safe contacting them anywhere but in the insulated chamber beneath the sandal hat shop. He grinned at her as she spotted him. Rukia had no idea why Naruto was in Urahara's shop and not in school, but he probably had a reason. She nodded to him and walked out with her package. Urahara turned to Naruto after she had gone. "Ah, Naruto, how can I help you today?" Before Naruto could answer, a cat jumped to his shoulders and curled around his neck. He didn't react in shock, but just scratched it behind the ears and smirked as she purred. Strangely enough, if you scratched Yoruchi somewhere as a cat then kissed her in roughly the same place on her body, you get basically the same reaction. "I want to fight you. I need a good workout, and none of these hollows are giving me a true fight." Urahara looked shocked for a second before smiling and gesturing for Naruto to follow him. Tezai locked up as they all headed down to the basement. Naruto was soon going through katas as Urahara just stared at his cane in hand. Naruto spun his blades one more time and faced Kasuke, ignoring the audience. He bounced on his feet one more time. "Ready, Urahara?" Kasuke nodded. Yoruchi watched in shock as Naruto went under a subtle transformation. His smile disappeared, turning his face into a blank mask. Life disappeared from his eyes, making the warm, inviting blue they usually look about as inviting as an iceberg-infested lake in the Arctic. Naruto charged, Urahara parried and quickly found himself on the defensive. Naruto was unrelenting and unforgiving. Yoruchi watched in awe as Urahara barely dodged a slash that would have ended his life. Naruto was fighting with a ferocity she had seen only Kenpachi possess, but he was also fighting with a level of skill, coordination, and grace that she had only seen once in her entire life. The one time she had seen Yamamoto take to the field in battle. Urahara was sweating. He hadn't had a fight like this in centuries, and he'd never had a fight with an opponent this good in swordplay. He grinned. "Oh, Kuro, Benihime." Yoruchi's and all the Urahara shop workers' jaws dropped as Urahara pulled out his shuriken. There was a flash of light. When they could see again, Yoruchi cursed violently and prepared to get help. Naruto was impaled on Benihime's blade, staring into the face of a stunned Urahara. He grinned and with a roar struck the shop owner in the face with the hilt of his sword. Urahara rocketed back from the blow. Benihime flew out of the wound she had made as blood spurted from Urahara's crushed nose. Naruto smiled. He sensed his blades were like him, only in true harmony and true happiness in a fight. Blood flowed, pain blossomed, and death waited in a fight. It was the only way to live. Something tickled at his mind, and he found himself on the mountaintop once again. "We believe you can hear our name now?" "Really?" "Yes, you could hear our name for a while now, but you needed a battle to bring us out to fight. Listen and use us while we are." Urahara held a hand to his broken nose and glared at the grinning Naruto. Naruto suddenly crossed his blades in front of him, the cutting edge of his left-hand katana touching the back of the right. "Born in the fires of creation, flying in the winds of time. Soar to the heavens to descend and scorch the earth clean of life. King of dragons. Fight Bahamut." Urahara's jaw dropped. Naruto had released his shuriken. There was an explosion, and a fireball raged in place of where Naruto stood. A figure leaped out of the flames and smoke. Clang! Urahara could feel his bones groan in protest at the unearthly strong blow. He stared at Naruto's weapon and felt an uncomfortable worm of fear dig into his stomach. The spectators were in shock. Yoruchi gained her senses enough to study the sword. It was beautiful, but it had to be the nastiest sword she had ever seen in her life. 6 feet of blade with a 1-foot handle, it was pitch black in color. The handle was placed directly in the center at the bottom of the blade. The cutting edge of the blade was serrated until it reached the top of the blade where it curled back. The very edge of the blade was blood red. Imagine Zabuza's sword without the holes in its design. Amazingly, Jinta was the first to speak. "That's not a sword, it's a slab of metal with an edge." They all had to agree. Naruto growled deep in his throat. He pulled back and made to cut Urahara in half. The man jumped just in the nick of time. As he flipped over Naruto, he noticed the rock that had been behind him was cut in half. He landed and mused out loud. "So it's a win, Zanpakuto." Naruto snarled and twirled. Even though Urahara was out of his reach, he swung the blade straight down, burying it in the earth. There was an explosion, and a line of fire shot towards Urahara. "What?" he screamed as he dived out of the way. Naruto advanced again. "Enough!" He paused and turned. Yoruchi was walking towards him. He shrugged and laid his sword against his back. It hung there magically, the hilt sticking over his shoulder. Urahara stood up and dusted himself off and stared at Naruto's blade in undisguised curiosity. "A dual element Zanpakuto. Never seen that before. Naruto shrugged and gave a crooked grin. Yoruichi stalked up to him and confronted him. What was that, Naruto? You looked like you were trying to kill him. Naruto smiled sheepishly. I haven't had a really good fight in centuries, and the opportunity presented itself. He shrugged his shoulders, not looking all that apologetic. Sorry. His blade began to glow, and it reformed into his normal 2 blades. He shivered slightly and grinned. I wonder what happened at school today, he asked himself as they headed back up into the shop. Urahara noticed something in the store. Wait a sec. Oh man! A few seconds later, Jinta was standing on top of a box labeled defective goods and pointing it out to Yururu. Tezai was explaining about soul candy to Naruto and how this one was a mod soul, an artificial soul with a personality. Apparently Rukia had taken it for Ichigo. Naruto snickered. This was going to be great. You know, if we're not real careful, this Chikangen could cause some serious problems. Urahara mumbled. Naruto watched the Urahara shop inhabitants carefully as he stroked Yoruichi, who was once again curled up on his shoulders. You're right, there's no telling what he might do if we let him run loose out there. Urahara suddenly realized something. Hey Naruto, if you're here in your soul form, then where's your body? Naruto blinked and sighed. Kyuubi learned she can force my soul from my body, so she's sort of like an always-on-hand Chikangen, but much stronger thanks to her chakra. She transformed into a chick using my body, then went shopping. She wanted some female clothes for when she's got to spend long periods in my form, or when you finally develop that specialized jigai for her. She was also going to catch a movie, I think. Kasuke nodded and started to give orders. While Tezai and Jinta disappeared to get what they needed, Urahara pulled a large object wrapped in bandages down from a shelf. Like they say, what's done is done. Naruto snickered as he leaned on a nearby wall waiting. I'm Mr. Kasuke, sir. It was Yururu. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know this is all my fault. I hope that you're not mad at me. When Urahara reached out his hand, Yururu closed her eyes and went waiting for the hit. When a hand gentle came to rest on her head, she gasped and looked up. There's no need to be afraid, Yururu. We're in this together. So you made a big mistake. He pulled her towards him in a one-armed hug. You didn't do it on purpose and accidents happen. Don't you worry, I'll take care of everything. Yururu began to cry in gratitude and relief. Naruto smiled nostalgically, remembering his own kids. Excuse me, Mr. Kasuke, everything's ready, sir. Urahara looked over his shoulder at Jinta and Tezai. Good, let's collect the merchandise. Naruto smirked. He cracked his neck, then his knuckles, as the others got ready. Heh, I'm never gonna let Ichigo live this one down. He murmured to himself, earning a snicker from Kasuke and a chuckle from the cat that jumped to his shoulders. Naruto followed Urahara to where the mod soul was. Naruto watched in fascination as Ichigo talked to the mod soul in his own body about something. Urahara spoke. Well, look who we have here. He walked up to the mod soul playing with his cane. So finally we find you. And what a picture, you're all beat up and worn out, all that trouble for nothing. He pointed his cane at Ichigo's body. The mod soul grunted as the cane hit his head and knocked him out of the body. Ichigo stared in shock while Naruto watched on in boredom. He'd seen the cane before. Mission accomplished, we're done, let's go home. Urahara said as he picked up the mod soul in its candy form and walked over to his group. WHHAT? Shouted Jinta before he complained. Come on, I came here to have a real fight, and that's all I get. Hey! Ichigo moved towards Urahara. Hold it, what are you gonna do with that mod soul now? Kasuke looked over his shoulder, his bucket hat shadowing his eyes. No choice, I got to destroy him. Ichigo flinched before asking a question that made Naruto groan. You see me? How can that be? Just who are you guys anyway? Kasuke smiled. I'm not sure how to answer that question. He tossed the mod soul into the air expecting to catch it, but a petite female hand snatched it out of the air first. It was Rukia. I believe that's mine, thanks. Miss Kuchiki, you can't have that. And why can't I have it, Kasuke? Are you saying it's your policy to seize goods that your customers have already paid for? Naruto snickered as Rukia spoke. Hey, I'll give you a full refund. How does that to you? Offered the surprised store owner. That's okay, I'm completely satisfied with my purchase. Besides, I know, and you know that you're operating outside the law, and I also know it's not your job to recall this mod soul. Urahara shrugged. I just hope you know what you're getting involved in, so don't blame me if you get into trouble. Rukia turned back to Ichigo with a smirk. I won't, I've already dealt with a lot of trouble since I've been here. Urahara groaned. Rukia walked up to Ichigo. Here. She handed him the mod soul. Come on, let's go. Ichigo stared down at the mod soul for a few seconds. And Naruto? Everyone jumped, and they were all surprised to see a buxom redhead running towards Naruto. Oh, hey, Kyuubi. Get your shopping done? She nodded, and the image of a woman was replaced with Naruto, in a black jacket and jeans, with something stuffed in his back pocket. Naruto stepped into his body, regaining control. He rolled his shoulders and sighed before pulling a hat just like Kosuke's out of his back pocket and settling it on his head. "Let's go, Ichigo." Ichigo nodded, still slightly bewildered, before jumping into his own body. They were walking past a construction site in a comfortable silence when Ichigo stopped, groaning in pain at his wounded shoulder. The mod soul had gotten his body damaged while fighting a hollow. "You're really feeling it." "Sure, and that mod soul took my body for a pretty rough test drive." He pulled a mod soul candy out of his pocket. "He tried to wreck me." "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Naruto raised an eyebrow at the boy shouting at a piece of candy. Rukia sighed. "I must say, you look awfully silly yelling at a pill in public." Ichigo blushed and growled. "I still want to tell him how I feel. Help me out here. Is there a way I can give this damn mod soul what's coming to him?" He looked at Naruto. "No way, man. First time I let Kyuubi use my body, I woke up in the middle of a large city, but undressed. I ain't doing that again." Ichigo snickered and looked at Rukia, who was thoughtful. "You need to insert him into a body, a dead body, or one that doesn't have a soul." Ichigo smiled and started looking around for one. "Aha, I got ya. I'm looking around for a dead body, and once I find a BM, is he going to get it?" Rukia repressed a giggle. "Just be quiet." Ichigo spotted something, a stuffed toy. "What do we have here?" He walked up to the toy sitting on a pile of trash. "So let me get this straight, you're saying a non-living object could work for this, right?" Rukia's eyes widened. "Hold on, that's not exactly how it works." She paused to think. "There's a possibility it could work, let's try it. You think?" "Alright, so what do I do?" "I would imagine you take the pill and put it in his mouth." "Thank God it's not a repository." Both looked at Naruto. "Huh? You don't know what that is even though your dad's a doctor?" A shake of the head. "You only got 2 holes in your body that lead to the digestive tract. Your mouth and—" Ichigo paled and Rukia blushed slightly. "Well, earlier models." Naruto blinked and shivered, thanking God that they had changed the format. Ichigo popped the pill into the plushie's mouth. Nothing happened. He picked it up. "So you got any ideas that might work?" Naruto decided to help. "Smack it around a little." Ichigo slapped it against the fence. "Ow! That hurts, Nimrod, got it?" The plushie jumped off Ichigo's hand and to the ground. "Kurosaki Ichigo, I hereby challenge you to a no-holds-barred duel. Count me in." The plushie looked up at the much bigger Ichigo. "Hey, wait! When did you grow big? Or did I somehow shrink?" It looked at itself. "What happened? I'm in a super cute plush toy with soft paws and no muscle. This isn't fair." Ichigo grinned evilly, making Naruto take a step back. "Hey, mod soul, relax. It's time for some payback for what you were doing to my body earlier." He grabbed its head and squeezed. "Your little field trip could have taken me out completely. I need to make you understand." The mod smirked. "I guess I'm going to have to mop the floor with you just the way I am." It gave a great battle cry, but found itself unable to move in Ichigo's grip. It struggled and grunted but began to scream when Ichigo beat it around. He dropped it and stomped on it, sending him into unconsciousness. They stared at the unconscious toy. "So what should we call him?" Ichigo wondered. Rukia had an idea. "How about Mod?" Naruto frowned. "Nah, that actually sounds cool. He's dorky and perverted apparently. Let's call him Fuzzface." "How about Colin?" Naruto shrugged. "It's not like he cared." Rukia nodded. "Con it is then." Ichigo picked it up and stuffed him in his backpack. "See ya, Ichigo. Rukia, I gotta meet up with Orihime for dinner. See you guys tomorrow." They waved, and as he reached a corner, he turned back and shouted, "Hey, Rukia, Ichigo needs his rest for tomorrow, so it oh naughty stuff tonight." Rukia froze and blushed. She turned to lay into Naruto, but he was already gone. The Shinigami and substitute Shinigami went home in an awkward silence. Naruto found his way home rather quickly. He entered his apartment, dropped off his stuff, and knocked on Orihime's door. She let him in with a smile. While they were eating something that was a combination of several different foods, Orihime asked a very serious question. "Naruto-kun, do you think Ichigo-kun likes me?" Naruto chewed slowly and swallowed before answering. "I know for a fact that he's at least attracted to you. He's only attracted to both you and Rukia." "Love, if that's what you're asking. I have no idea, it's never come up, and he's not an open person. However, I'm pretty confident he likes both of you." Orihime blushed and seemed to relax slightly. "Will he ever admit it?" "Not of his own accord, but let me work on it for you, little sister." Orihime blushed and giggled. She did love Naruto like a brother. "But he's so much closer to Rukia-sen, I might lose him to her." "Maybe." Orihime started to tear up. "Unless you share." "W what?" "Unless you and Rukia share Ichigo between the two of you." Orihime blushed. I've seen it work if the guy actually loves both women and both women love him back and are good friends. It'll take some work, but I think you can pull it off. But you must be prepared for something. What? In the heat of the moment when Rukia and Ichigo are there, you and Rukia might get into each other. Orihime blushed and looked away, mumbling something. What was that? I wouldn't mind as long as Ichigo's there, but I don't want to become a lesbian. You won't be. There are plenty of women who are perfectly straight and wouldn't have naughty stuff with another woman. However, when a man is there, they just might. Doesn't mean you're bi naughty stuff you'll either. You're just more open when you have naughty stuff. My girlfriend's like that. Sakura wasn't, she was bi. It gets kind of disturbing when your girlfriend points out women who have nice butts or big watermelons. Orihime blushed and giggled. Orihime had noticed before that she wore an almost permanent blush when alone with Naruto. He was so honest and frank. He'd openly talk about naughty stuff and had been forestalled from talking about his own naughty stuff life before. The last time he had mentioned anal around Tatsuki and he gave her a very detailed explanation before her best friend could forestall him. It didn't take long for the irritated black-haired young woman to beat him up after that. Orihime hadn't been able to sit without fidgeting for hours afterwards. Naruto thought it was funny as hell. Naruto helped her wash up, then left soon afterwards, after chatting a bit about some romantic comedy Orihime wanted to see. She had giggled up a storm at the disgusted looks on Naruto's face, as she described and imitated the sappy love lines in the movie trailer. Naruto grinned inanely. Orihime was a great girl. Ichigo was one lucky dude. He found himself being pushed down on his bed as soon as he entered the room. It was Yoruchi. Yoruchi wa? He didn't finish as her mouth covered his own. She straddled him and pulled back. Naruto, make love to me. He blinked. Okay. He started to lift himself up, but she put a hand on his chest and pushed him back down. No, Naruto, not naughty stuff, love, okay? He was suddenly confused, not entirely sure what she was getting at. He searched her eyes and found something he had never seen in her eyes. An emotion he hadn't seen in a woman's eyes for nearly 2,000 years. She leaned down and whispered in his ear. I love you. She whispered to him huskily, none of her inner turmoil and fear reverberating through her voice. He grabbed her by her shoulders. Yoruchi, are you sure? I mean, you never struck me as a person to fall easily. I'm sure. She whispered in determination. I've had lovers before, Naruto. You're not naive, you know that, and you're not worried about it. Those lovers were fleeting physical fun, and once it was over, and I was satisfied, I didn't care about them anymore. She took a slight pause. You're different. I can't get enough of you. I've never snuggled up to someone or hugged them in my sleep. You're my man, Naruto. I know you and I know your history. There might be other women, and as long as they share you, and you occasionally share them, I can't complain. So please, Naruto, make love to me. He watched her. Her eyes were full of emotion, telling him just how vulnerable she was at that exact moment. He gave her a warm smile that made her relax, if only slightly. Yoruchi, I've had two problems my entire life right from the point I started to see that girls were different from boys. The first problem is that when I fall in love with someone, I'll never fall out of love with them, never give up on them, and always be there for them. The second is that I fall in love very easily because I just always see a person for who they really are, and I've been in love with someone from the moment I arrived in this world. Yoruchi blinked, processing what he said. Her breathing became a little easier, and all her worries melted like snow. Her tensing muscles unclenched themselves, and she finally grinned at him, causing Naruto to smile a soft smile back. Lips crashed together, and they made love. Again and again and again, over and over and over. Several hours later in the early morning, Naruto was thankful that he didn't require much sleep. He only needed to sleep 2 to 3 hours a day to stay fresh for a good 24 hours. Yoruchi sighed in contentment and pressed herself up against him as they spooned. He was still erect. She both loved and hated his stamina, loved it because he could outlast her in bed, but hated it because when she had collapsed and could go no longer, her body still craved him, and the fact he could still go on made it hard to ignore that need. She may not be able to handle him being on top anymore, or herself being on top. She was far too sore. There was something she had never done except when by herself and very bored. She reached down and grabbed him, smirking when he gasped. She guided him to where she wanted him. He sighed into her hair when he touched her back door. You sure? Her only answer was to press back into him. He slipped inside. You're tight. He entered her further until their hips met. Nice and slow, Foxy. I've never had anything as big as you back there. He growled into the back of her neck and kept the pace nice and slow. They were at it for hours. Yoruchi sighed in content as her orgasm washed over her. It had taken an age to get to it, but it was absolutely delicious. She clenched, then released, pressed down on Naruto, then clenched again. He groaned and bit down on her neck as he emptied into her ass. He hugged her, kissed her ear. "Love you, Yuri-chan. Love you too, Naruto." With a tired yawn from both their mouths, they fell into a deep and peaceful sleep. Orihime bounced up and down anxiously. Tatsuki was standing next to her, very nervous. Orihime had a copy of Naruto's door key in her hand, and he'd given it to her for this reason. If he was late to school, she'd open up and wake him up or hurry him along. She opened the door to his apartment. It was more of a loft, one big open space. The kitchen was in one corner, easily spotted by the large table, sinks, counters, fridge, and tiled floor. The rest of the floor was carpeted. A large bed was pressed against one wall, with an open walk-in closet nearby. On the other side was a closed door, presumably the bathroom. Orihime walked in and blushed lightly. Tatsuki followed her and flushed red mouth, opening slightly to drool. Naruto was asleep on his bed, covered from the waist down. His heavily muscled and tanned body shone off to the world. A strange tattoo on his stomach stood out, as well as the expensive-looking necklace on his neck. They froze when a toilet flushed in the bathroom. Cursing was what they heard next. "I knew I shouldn't have let that big bastard get in my ass without lube or something stupid." She said some weird words that sounded like Jigai. Tatsuki felt faint. She was standing here ogling Naruto, while his girlfriend was in the bathroom loudly complaining about having anal naughty stuff with someone well endowed. Naruto rolled over in his sleep. The sheet fell off. Tatsuki squealed. He had large scratches on his back, and what looked like teeth marks on his right cheek. The squeal woke him up. Naruto rolled off the bed and into a fight stance. He glanced around the room, seeing Orihime blushing crimson and covering her eyes, and Tatsuki looking faint with blood running down her chin from her nose. Yuruchi was leaning on the bathroom doorway, one hand rubbing her sore ass, but she was smirking at the two girls. Naruto blinked, finally realizing who was in the room. Nonplussed. "What are you two doing here?" He took a step towards his closet. Muscles rippled. Tatsuki fainted. Orihime forgot about the undressed Naruto and the undressed black woman as she dragged Tatsuki out. Naruto burst into laughter, and so did Yuruchi as she hobbled over. She giggled as she grabbed her own clothes. "The black-haired one likes you. I know, it's brilliant. Oh, I'm going to have so much fun today." He quickly showered and dressed. Then, before he left, he pulled Yuruchi flush up against him, her back to his chest. He whispered in her ear, "Tonight I'm going to take your ass again and again until you're screaming my name so loud Soul Society could hear you. You won't be able to walk right for the rest of your life." Yuruchi had the good grace to blush, then yelp in pain when he slapped her as hard. She glared at the smirking Naruto, who blew her a kiss as he closed the door. "Damn know-it-all bastard. I'm gonna let him do that." She sat down and winced. "Damn, my ass hurts." Tatsuki was gritting her teeth in embarrassment and rage. Naruto, the bastard, had been smiling at her knowingly the entire morning. She only got a reprieve by going with Orihime early to one of their classes. Michiru approached her. "Excuse me, Tatsuki, you take our class, don't you?" "Yeah." "So did you do our assignment? The one that was on our future? How do we see ourselves in the future? Can I see yours? I drew one, but it's not very good." "Oh, sure." She dug in her bag and pulled out her sketchbook. "Here." It was a picture of her standing in a boxing ring over a defeated opponent, holding aloft a championship belt. "Wow, you did a great job." "That's me. It shows how I'm going to be the first female Veltudo champion." Michiru looked down at it, despondent. "This is awesome. My drawing looks so lame. I don't want to show it to any of you." "Oh, Orihime, can you show me what you drew? I'd love to. I'm glad you asked to see it, because secretly I'm very proud of what I did." She reached into her bag and pulled out her own sketchbook. "Great, you must have done. Wah!" She stared at a picture of a burning city with a robot with Orihime's head on top firing a rocket from where one of her watermelons should be. "I'll have a velocity of over 200 miles per hour. A 20,000 degrees Celsius flame will shoot from my mouth, and my eyes will project destruction beams." Michiru was aghast. "Orihime, what have you done?" While the girls told her of her mistake, Ichigo walked in, followed by Naruto. Orihime saw them first. "Hey, good morning, guys." Ichigo smiled, freaking Naruto. "Hi, Orihime, how's it going?" This shocked everyone. Naruto was suddenly all over Ichigo, asking about his temperature, and was he sick? He didn't let up until Ichigo hit him in the face. Michiru was curious. "What is up with Ichigo? He never says hi or acts friendly to anyone. It's really kind of strange. It's like he's in a good mood." She tried to get Orihime's attention, but she kept staring off into space, in Ichigo's direction. Tatsuki frowned. "Michiru, what's the date today?" "Oh, today is June 16th. Tatsuki sighed. "I knew it. Sometimes Ichigo holds in his feelings." He's not in a good mood, he's acting nice, but he's really tense today. She stood up. Orihime was worried. Tatsuki, it's nothing to worry about. I know why he's acting like this, and I bet you tomorrow Ichigo is going to skip school altogether. Later during lunch, they were all sitting just chatting away when Kigo went on a spiel about getting a tattoo. Hey Naruto, would you ever get a tattoo? Huh? Na already got 1 inch. The girls gasped, but Orihime and Tatsuki blushed. Why you do? Where can you show it? Naruto nodded and lifted up his shirt, revealing a large spiraling tattoo on his stomach. When did you get it, Naruto? It looks really cool. Naruto frowned. He doubted they would believe he's had it since he was born. When I was 13, I broke into my guardian's liquor cabinet, drank myself stupid, then managed to stagger across the road with his credit card in hand to the local tattoo parlor, then woke up with this thing. Naruto smirked. Tatsuki, you don't seem surprised that I have a tattoo. Why is that? All eyes turned to her, and she spluttered and blushed. Thinking fast, she answered, Well, I just figured you're the kind of idiot that would do that. Naruto raised an eyebrow. So it's not because you walked into my apartment this morning while I was undressed? Tatsuki was suddenly feeling faint again at the shocked looks on everyone's faces. Orihime was there too, Orihime gasped. Tatsuki, what? We both had to stand there and listen as his girlfriend complained about how he ate her in the ass last night. Then he jumps out of bed, but undressed with his huge thing swinging everywhere and acting like it's no big deal, and then he brings up that I saw his hot body and doesn't mention you were there, only me. I have every right to blow up. With a shrill scream, she passed out. Everyone sat stunned. Naruto started laughing. He just kept laughing and laughing until it became a dry wheeze. When he finished wiping his eyes from the tears, he looked up into people's astonished faces. What? Kigo was the first to speak. They saw you undressed? Well, yeah, I sleep undressed most nights, since my girlfriend is there most nights, and I overslept. And a couple of weeks ago, I gave Orihime a spare key to let herself in if I'm late. She did and walked in on my sleeping undressed and my girlfriend complaining about being sore. Then he muttered something. What? Don't know why she was complaining. She scratched the shit out of me last night. The lunch bell rang. Orihime, you go. I'll wake up Tatsuki. I should probably apologize for this morning anyway. Orihime nodded and everyone left. Even Ichigo seemed shocked out of his funk. Naruto shook Tatsuki awake. She looked up at his face surprised, then blushed and snarled at him. She sat up swinging. He jumped away. You really know how to keep things to yourself, huh? You started it, you bastard. Yeah, well, I didn't expect you to explode. Batar MMPH. Her eyes widened in shock as he kissed her. He pulled back. WHA MMPH. Damn you. She was blushing and hot under the collar. She grabbed him by the collar. I am so going to beat you up after this. She dragged him down into a kiss. Naruto grinned into it and felt very pleased with himself at the shiver she gave when he ran his hands down her sides. He pulled away, leaving a blushing and out-of-breath Tatsuki. He's still going to beat me up. Yes, but when I get you alone, your ass is mine. I knew you were into that kinky stuff. Come on, we got to get to class. She nodded, then slugged him in the face, leaving a small bruise. She went to class where Orihime pulled her aside. You kissed him. What? I saw you. So what if I did? Unfortunately, Kigo heard them. Tatsuki kissed Naruto, can you believe it? Tatsuki groaned. I hate my life. That's for today. Click here to watch the next part once we complete the 100 likes on this video. For now, enjoy my other stories.